Good afternoon and welcome to all of you who are participating in the ISEY today. I am so happy to have us all back in the third edition of the ISEY, which is India's largest education fraternity plus families combined platform where we bring all of us together in this conference. As I mentioned, we've hosted this three times. This is our third year in a row, and we've had some luminaries from every walk of life. We've had academicians, we've had influencers. In the last years, we've had luminaries such as Peter Gray and Isha Deol, and this year, we are so fortunate to have Dr. Kiran Bedi and Professor Sugata Mitra with us on this conference today. We hope to keep this event, more meaningful, always innovative, make it bigger, better every year. And this year has been the culmination of huge efforts on part of the team to put together an event which I'm sure all of you would enjoy. So this year we are bringing to you a very timely and a very pertinent theme. That it's been 18 months since we've been in the midst of this pandemic. And what we are going to be talking about is how the families of the children and the educators need to be working together. Now, in the pandemic, the two key stakeholders in the life of a child, the teachers and the parents, who are the first points of contact for these children, they've been impacted the most in context of this pandemic. And the entire learning teaching dynamic has changed in this. The parents have now become the center of education delivery, and the teachers in turn have become the mentors. Now, these evolving roles where teachers are working hard to keep children engaged with new formats of education delivery, and parents grappling with their newly assumed role of being the primary caregivers and the education facilitators, there's bound to be some conflict. And these areas of conflict are what we are hoping to address and solve for in this edition of the ISEY. So, for instance, one of the topics that's very high on everybody's mind right now would be the safe reopening of schools. And how do we address this in an appropriate manner? So, we are hoping that through this conference, we'd be able to discuss these topics in more detail and also come out with solutions that could benefit us all. So we at Klay are keen to build these into some sort of a handbook for the future, for the benefit of parents, for the benefit of teachers, and most importantly, for the benefit of children across the globe. On this note, in this context, and with this grand vision, I would now like to introduce you to my most esteemed colleague, Meghna Yadav, who would be our host for this afternoon's session. Meghna Yadav herself needs no introduction. In the world of early childhood education, she is a very, very recognized name. She's well recognized by academicians, by the teaching community, and by the parent community with whom she has had tremendous levels of interaction in the past, especially so in the last 18 months, where she's been of tremendous help in making us all go the right path. So before I turn this over to my most esteemed colleague to host the rest of the afternoon, I would first take the privilege of declaring the ISEY 2021 open.
Thank you so much, AK. And it is wonderful to share this platform with you this afternoon. And when we are collecting different kind of experiences on one platform to give the very best to children. Thank you so much for such a wonderful opening and setting the tone for the future sessions that I'm sure we will all enrich will be. Thank you to all those who are sitting here in audience and watching us, because it is very important to join hands for this wonderful partnership to flourish. Parents and teachers need to come together, and we need to contribute significantly through our respective roles in this partnership. Friends, in 2019, when we started International Summit on Early Years, little did we know that the theme will become so relevant so soon. We invested in adults working for children. Happy adults lead to happy children was the theme. And now the well invested adults need to act. Act with all three edge: head, heart, and hands. And actually, I am not the person who is saying so. I borrowed this wonderful thought from somebody who is an inspiration to millions, as brave as lion, and her commitment to her work is incomparable. She is Dr. Kiran Bedi. I take immense pleasure and immense happiness to share this platform with Dr. Kiran Bedi, and it is an honor to have you here. I would like to call her the social engineer. I heard her somewhere saying so about her, and that is the biggest thing, I think, the best way to describe Dr. Kiran Bedi. Dr. Bedi, thank you so very much for accepting the invitation. It is an honor to have a personality like you who is a household name, such phenomenon of strength I have never seen in my life. You are really the courage personified, and it is an honor, it is a privilege to have you. Very warm welcome, Dr. Bedi.
Thank you, Meghna. Thank
नमस्कार,
you.
बहुत बहुत नमस्कार आपको.
आपका
And
भी बहुत
so, Dr. Bedi, I know you have such rich experience, such prolific individual, a multidimensional personality. Without taking much time, I would really like to delve deeper into your own childhood days, because we have many parents and teachers sitting in audience, and we really want to know the persona of Kiran Bedi. So if you can please share for especially the parents in audience, how the individuality of a child or the personality of the child shapes up, and what is the role of the parent in this.
Thank you, Meghna, for inviting me to Klay. Want to thank your leader, Mr. Srikanth, who I've just heard, and it is an honor hearing him. I also want to recognize and thank Himanshu Garg, who's been in contact with me to see that I am with you. So it's you and Himanshu together have made sure that I witness one of the very outstanding session on education, which focuses on parents and children. Thank you for asking me this question. Since you asked me this question earlier and you gave me some notice, I looked back at my own growth and I looked at what is it that has enabled me to survive this far and to live a life on my own terms. And in many ways, as a woman who broke barriers, and that sometimes we, as a woman or as a girl growing up, how did I make my way through? And when I look back, since you gave me some time, it gave me time to reflect. And in the time given, here are my pointers, which I think would be very, very helpful. And I don't think if you if you take anything out of this pointer, the life would be as complete and as self-reliant as it has been for me so far.
Mhm.
Number one, every child needs both mother and father. Number one. So this is very, very important. So if you can't outsource this, it cannot be outsourced. You need that every child, first of all, should be a wanted child, not accidental child. But even if the child has come by accident, should become a wanted child, girl or a boy. And then have a mother and a father, both. So wanted child and having both. Number two, both should have time for the child. This is very, very important. Now, who spends more time in both working parents is a matter of choice to be made. It's a balancing to be effected. Two, because without time, again, you are delegating a lot. So, second, a wanted child, and then a loved child, and an accepted child. And then comes time for the child, and then resources for the child. For me, both my mother and father had all the time for us. We were four girls, but they had the time for us. They made time for us, made sure. Third, very nutritious. That's why the government of India supplements nutrition. I'm a product of very good nutrition. My mother was particularly careful in the kind of food we girls eat. It was simple food, but it was very nutritious. First of all, my mother was healthy when she produced me, because a healthy mother produces a healthy child. It's very, very important, the kind of pre-nuptial, before, not nuptial, before childbirth, how healthy the father and the mother is. If you expect the father not to be healthy and only the mother to be healthy, sorry, it doesn't work. Because I've seen this happen in an alcoholic father, where the father has bad habits, but the mother is healthy, but she produces a child, because that child is going to grow up with the kind of brain, the brain cells, and the physical body. So, but that's again, I have went back a little. Then comes nutrition. It's very important that we pay attention to nutrition, because when I became an Asian tennis champion along with my studies, I was gifted with very good health. And that health was not my creation. I was born with good health because mummy was healthy when she produced me. But the fact is that she nurtured me. My parents nurtured me with the best of nutrition. It was not most expensive nutrition. It was quality nutrition. Whether I get my proteins right, I get my minerals right, I get my calcium right, whether it was even a vegetarian food. Then comes love and care. That comes with time. The love and the care which the child gets from a parent. Then the encouragement. You've done well, you can do better, but then we are behind you. Encouragement. Sense of security is very vital. You can't leave the child to insecure situations, vulnerable, whether it's a boy or a girl, doesn't matter. Child is open for any exploitation. Then comes the schooling. The school you choose for the child, because children don't choose their own school. Parents choose the school. Less as children don't choose their name, they're given by the parent. Similarly, is the schooling. And I was gifted by parents who got the most best school. It happened to be very expensive, but it was the best school in the city of Amritsar, even if it was 14 kilometers away. And my dad didn't have a car or anything. My grandfather had a buggy. He never let us children sit into his buggy because he's a very feudal grandfather. But daddy only had a motorcycle, so or a cycle. So we went into stongas and rickshaws. So, but we even sent us to the best school. We had a school which was next door, which wouldn't have charged us anything. But he did not send us to the next school. He sent us to the best school according to him. It's according to him. There's a best school also next door. It was ideal if you have a next door a best school. But according to him, that was the best school. And he sent us to the best school according to my parents. Then he gave us an identity. We were all being introduced as my daughters, my daughters. And then never said, we wish I had a son, my daughters, and who is achieving, who's doing well, and a good child. So gave us the self-confidence, gave us the courage, gave us the versatility, gave us the values, gave us the habits. They allowed us to play. I was a tennis player from the age of 9. From school, I went to tennis courts and played. See, I belong to an upbringing which it should be a dream of any girl, any boy. It was a dream home. Then outdoors, plenty of outdoors. Girls are restricted. We were not restricted. There was a lot of time for outdoor and playing tennis. No restriction. Yes, there was only one restriction. They wanted us to be home before sun sets. That was the only restriction. Because at that time, you could have been teased by the boys. So parents said, try and be home. But if it's little late, but try and be home before you become vulnerable, because we're not with you or somebody's not with you. So I and my younger sister would cycle back home from anywhere. By the time it's still little, not too dark. It's not. So that means we never went for late nights. No, we didn't. We didn't. Secondly, for the reason not that they're bad or good. I'm not being judgmental. I'm just saying because we had to go do our homework and we had to get ready for my tennis the next day. So if I don't pick up, so there was a time regulation and a value for time. Birthday parties we went. This is once in a while. We went for very good birthday parties, but it was once in a while, a lot of fun. But then we knew the next day we may have to skip something, but we did. We had a lot of fun, but it was very structured and carefully managed fun. But our own selves, we self-regulated. Parents didn't regulate it. We regulated it because we had to do the following thing next day. So they gave us a very strong sense of independence, self-reliant and independence. And then they were trusting. We trusted them, they trusted us. There was an environment of growth. There was an all-round appreciation. So that's what my parenting is. My parents are. I think this is what every girl, boy needs. A set of these environmental issues where, and we were all 4 girls, wanted girls. Nobody dare tell my father, mother in 50s, early 50s, कि तुम्हारे घर में कोई लड़का नहीं हुआ. Never. But, and we were all growing up to grow up to carry forward the legacy of our parents. We were all four girls competing with each other कि बड़े होके मम्मी डैडी किसके साथ रहेंगे, कौन रहेगा इनके साथ. And we used to fight, and I won the war every time, and it did. The point is, my parents were with me, both mother and father, till the last breath of their life, because they were closest to me. And that's what I'm saying. So you asked me, first question is about parenting. This is my list of a checklist. All this matters. You take anything out of it, the foundation will be that much weak, because I'm a product of this parenting foundation. And I think that's the structure, that's the message every parent needs before they decide to be a parent. What is it that they have ready to give to the child? Because every child is a life by itself. You choose to give a birth to a life, then you take responsibility for that life. You have to nurture that life till that life decides to provide for others' lives.
So, Dr. Bedi, you have clearly defined us that the foundation is given by the parents from the very first day of life, and in fact, before the child comes to this world. And we
Yes.
have been experiencing it while working with thousands of parents at Klay preschools and daycare. But we have also seen one significant aspect, and that is something I would love to hear from you. That little girl who turned into Kiran Bedi, who won the Meghna award, who is a tennis championship, working day and night through India Vision Foundation, and for sure, former Lieutenant Governor of Puducherry, and the first woman in police force. So, if I have to look back at the strong personality of yours, I'm just wondering, teachers must have played some equally crucial role in your life. And since we have both the forces present here in audience, can you tell us a little more about your schooling and the crucial role teachers played? Because I'm sure there are many teachers who know very well that they play a crucial role in the child's life. Can you resonate with that? There were some teachers who really played something very significant and gave you that strong foundation along with your parents?
Meghna, it's a very good fortune if the school thinking and the parents thinking is in alignment,
So true.
and that they
So true.
reinforce each other. They reinforce. And mine was a girls' school. It was not a
Uh-huh.
co-ed school. It was a convent Sacred Heart school from Amritsar. It was not a co-ed. But the girls, the kind of discipline we were getting, the kind of value systems we were getting, the value education which we were getting, the kind of team spirit we were getting, the kind of opportunities we were getting, I think it was in alignment. It was reinforcement. From school, from home to school was a reinforcement. And from school back to home was saying the same thing. The value
Ah,
system, the love for reading, the love for language, the love for writing, the love for cleanliness, the love for polite behavior, right for character building,
mhm.
all was love for books, right? Love for being in order, life in order, and the love for respect for elders, and the love for giving and sharing. Look, it books anyway we would have passed, but what is important here is that they reinforced what was being taught and seen at home. So when you have a school or school in particular, because it's a very foundation time, they are the one. So we were never in conflict. On the contrary, the teachers would take us further up in discipline, saying नहीं मैंने तो वही करना है जो मेरी टीचर ने बोला, because teacher is always the last word in school, right?
Teacher
So
is God.
मम्मी reinforcing, हाँ अगर टीचर ने कहा तो टीचर ने ठीक कहा, आप वही करो जो टीचर ने कहा. So it was a mutual respect. So I think there's a great partnership between the PTA and our parents. They were very much in alignment with each other. And what are they going to make us out of? So my teachers knew we were growing up, we were outgrowing, we will outgrow so much. So I think that's where the reinforcement comes. Therefore, PTAs are very important. Parents must find time to attend the Parents Teachers Association and home visiting. My teachers were often coming home and meeting up my parents to see what kind of home I have. So teachers also need to connect with homes.
Ah. That's so important. In fact, when you were talking, I do see most of the elements present even in today's education, where partnership flourish only when there is a mutual respect for both the forces. Parents respecting the school and the teachers, and teachers respecting and moreover respect, empathizing with the struggles and challenges that parents are facing in today's world. But one for sure, a lesson to learn probably in India, we need to incorporate more is to bring back this concept of home visits, because
Mm.
I think that is one thing a good takeaway for me as well, that we need to inculcate this as a part of our education. This connection needs to flourish only when there are home visits.
Yeah.
But apart from teachers and parents, like you have said, I think the connecting link between these two is actually the society at large, Dr. Bedi. The society, like you said, the character building. I think it's not a function of one force of parent or one force of teacher. Correcting building of children and character building of nation is actually a responsibility of society at large. Since you have been in sports and since you have been into discipline, I would love to know how much sports discipline and society at large played the role in bringing this kind of a stamina in you, which gave you the strength to stay positive throughout your life.
Well, if my parents had not sent me to tennis, I would have been half of what I am today, as far as my beliefs are concerned, or my confidence level, or the spirit of entrepreneurship, or the social engineering would have been half. And I would have never been able to take the crises the way they came, the way I did. Why? Because sports prepares you.
Hmm.
Sports prepares you. It makes you earn your trophy. You don't get it. It makes you learn to earn and then deserve. That's the
So
point.
well said. So
This
well
is
said, Dr. Bedi.
without that you are half in education. What books give you, and if you play also, and also somewhere in competition, doesn't matter if it's not international, even if it's college competition, every competition does teach you, like every school examination does enhance your preparatory capability and your revision capability and your research capability, right?
True.
Competitive capability. So I think what sports taught me, that is where it became 100% more. When students education gave me 100%, education sports gave me another 100%. It taught me to prepare, it taught me to deserve, it taught me to aspire for more
Mhm.
in the right way, it taught me to play by the rules. It Because games is all by the rules, it's all by scorching, so you learn not to cheat. You learn to play fair because you're playing fair as a child, because it's everything visible, but you don't say because it's visible, because it
Mhm.
is the rules. Secondly, it trained me to work hard, because you can't be competitive without working hard, preparing hard, and the harder you work, the greater your trophy. The more you work, we got it recently seen with the Olympics. Whoever worked the hardest got the gold. Who worked strategically harder got the gold, right? Who
Uh-huh.
had got the mental stress management got the gold. So I
Mhm.
think then therefore you also learn to make friends. The kind of best friends I made during tennis are my best friends still. Those are my golden friends. Those people, those are the relationships which are gold. So you make very golden because you grow up together. Then you learn to achieve and take the joy and the sorrow. You learn to lose and you learn to win. And you turn to prepare to beat the loss. But you take the loss and you take the victory. Exactly what God. So you say, okay, now let me prepare for the next. Exactly what Bhagavad Gita says. आज हो गया, अब अगली की तैयारी करो. अब इसको छोड़ो, अब तो कल का कल है ना. You learn to live in the present. I won
True.
now I prepare for my next match tomorrow. And what is important is we are being trained to concentrate. When you play, you are learning to on your own concentrating, because the
True.
moment you lose your concentration, you lose the ball.
True.
See, focusing on, and secondly, you build endurance. What has helped me got to get into the Indian Police Service and compete equally and train equally with the boys? When in 1972 I joined, and my ustad said, "बोलो training को कम कर दूं, ऊंचाई कम कर दूं, या ये स्पीड कम कर दूं?" मैंने कहा कुछ कम नहीं करेंगे आप. मैं वही ट्रेनिंग करूंगी जो मेरे बाकी के मेल कॉलीग्स करें, क्योंकि कल को ये नहीं कहें ये तो आसानी से आ गई. मैंने कहा एक भी मैंने आसानी से लफ्ज नहीं सुनना, मैंने तो इनको भी हरा के आना है. And that's a fact. We ran the marathon, I was in the first three of the 1 mile marathon. There were 78 boys behind me. We were the first three in the marathon. And then I used to be the tennis champion of my academy because I was the national champion and boys were the university champions. And I used to beat the boys and they loved it. My director loved it. So what I'm saying, I then, because of my sports, I had the endurance and I had the stamina and I knew how to do it. So I say that no education is complete without sports.
And I am so happy to hear this coming from a person of your stature. Most of the parents and this madness we see in many cities in India, the madness about grades of children. I would say, like you rightly put, if sports is not becoming an integral part of academics, our children are suffering, parents, and we need to provide that atmosphere where they flourish. I would request the people sitting in audience, parents and teachers, start posing their question before I discuss this last point with Dr. Kiran Bedi. We are opening it up for Q&A as well, and we would love to take the live questions coming from the audience. Dr. Bedi has gracefully agreed to take that. So I'm more than happy to be this mediator for each and every person sitting in the audience. And the very first thing that I would like to ask you on behalf of audience, Dr. Bedi, is whatever you are doing right now in today's world, through your foundation or through your book reading sessions, I'm sure there is so much to be replicated in remote possible areas of India. There is so much that the education industry, the whole industry of India can replicate to bring the very best. Do you have some quick solutions or some quick practical approaches for people sitting in audience
So are you
just
talking
to replicate
are you
what you
talking
are?
rural areas or the urban areas? It's very important to distinguish. You see,
That's so
rural areas
important.
have their own challenge.
Yeah.
Urban
Well,
areas have their own challenge.
I understand that this is coming from an urban parent, so we will first understand it from urban Indian perspective, and then gradually you can give us some solutions for remote areas as well.
Okay, good. If it's urban areas, then I
Mhm.
think should nobody who has more should not contribute to education. And today, Meghna, I think we should gradually move towards vocationalizing of education because having an unemployable 12th standard and having a skilled 9th standard who is willing to do the open school up to 12th standard, I think should be a preferred candidate. That means in skill development, we must make them say, okay, go learn your scholarship. आप skill सीखो. And that is what NEP is coming. Skill भी सीखो, कमाना and early startup कराओ, early startup. चाहे 5,000 रुपए से करो, 10,000 से करो, learn a skill and therefore go. And so it's better to have an person who's now wanting to educate by self providing rather than an unemployable graduate. So NEP is exactly going to do that. And if we can contribute as urban areas, strengthen the resources, take these boys and girls on internships. Once they're 16-year-old, take them on internships in your shops, in your businesses, in your factories. Let them pick up and learn. They will know what kind of engineering they want to do, what kind of management course they want to do, what kind of diploma they want to do. You will have employable, skilled, called demographic dividends.
That's awesome. And it is something very important. I'm so happy that you highlighted the concept of NEP, because the next question coming your way is that the crucial role of policy. We have the strength in us as parents. I am a mother of two, and I can totally relate with what you are saying. We as parents want to give the very best to our children. And I can vouch, being a teacher myself, that the same quality of childhood I want to give to the children in my classroom as a teacher. My commitment cannot be compared and cannot be at all put at stake. The challenge is the support from the governance, support from the policy. And do you think NEP will play a very crucial role now in India in bringing the vocational skills to children, in giving the right direction to education, Dr. Bedi? Given your
Yes, it
rich
can.
experience, can you share
Absolutely.
some points
That
on
is,
that?
you're right, Meghna. That's where the policy will be now, will be beneficial because now NEP is a policy. Automatically, better funding will come. Better funding will come. Better training skills will come, and therefore grading will come. You get your credits for that. But meanwhile, you asked me, short of that, what can the private sector do in the urban areas? I would say every industry, every Rotary, every NGO, link yourself with some nearby schools and strengthen the skills component already, because time is ticking for children. Time may wait for you and me, but time is not going to wait for our children. Somebody who's in the 16 will become 17 and 18 and 19 tomorrow. Therefore, start working on skills development with nearby schools and see how children can come into skill plus school. Now the concept should be skill plus education rather than school plus education, a skill plus school, skilled school. It should now become a skilled school, skilling school. So if we can get a skilling school, I've seen, Meghna, in my career, where we got illiterate women into our rural projects. They were never interested in ABCD. But the moment I said computer सीखो, वो सीखने लगे ABCD, क ख ग सीखने लगे, क्योंकि वो घर जाके अपने बच्चों को कह सकते थे मुझे भी कंप्यूटर आता है। लेकिन कंप्यूटर से क ख ग सीख गए, नाम लिखना सीख गए, बस का नंबर सीख गए और अपनी पढ़ाई अब कहते हैं मुझे पढ़ाओ भी। So we took them from vocation to education rather than alphabet to vocation. So learn vocation and schooling. I've seen it works much better.
Oh, Dr. Bedi, I can keep listening to you. So significant points coming from your rich experience. Nothing can beat it. But I have a couple of questions coming from straight heart of parents, and allow me to take that. A very sweet question coming from the heart of a daddy or a mommy. The child is 4-year-old. What is the best skill a kid below 10 should learn so that the child will eventually contribute to society? Kudos to the parent who is thinking like this. Hats off to you that you are investing in this question, and love to hear the answer from Dr. Bedi herself.
I think this is a time to play with the child, learn with the child, laugh with the child, sing with the child, pray with the child, eat with the child, sleep with the child. This is the time to enjoy with the child. You're at a very fortunate time. And listen to the child and giggle with the child. I think this is the time. So while playing with the parents and this environment, the child is going to learn and pick up what they want. So I think don't teach the child. On the contrary, play and learn from the child, the innocence, the joy, the simplicity, the smile, the giggle. Play. I think this is a time for the child to play with you, sing with you, dance with you, pray with you, eat with you, sleep with you. I think this is a time to be friends with the child.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bedi. We are flooded with questions for you, and I know your other commitments are waiting for you. Let me take one last question. Let me take this liberty to extend this a little bit because this question is so pertinent from where we started. So, the gentleman or the lady in the audience is asking, your parents have had a huge influence on you. And parenting in today's world is struggling to achieve a balance in that, Dr. Bedi, the independence and discipline. They really struggle in giving this good mix of independence and discipline among children. Your final words, your advice through this question to the whole thousands of crowd listening to you.
Don't impose discipline. Let the discipline grow from within the child. In fact, you see, you are not a ringmaster. Be the Zen master. As Debashish Chatterjee said, director of IMM Kozhikode, he said, don't be ringmasters, be Zen masters. And what does the Zen do? Zen creates a very interesting environment of love, care, compassion, and joy. And through that, the child picks up the best of the discipline habits. It's called self-awareness, self-discipline, and not imposed discipline. I think that's the main. So don't be ringmasters. Neither should teacher be a ringmaster, and nor should be parent be a ringmaster. As Debussy said, be the Zen masters. Zen master creates a very enabling, peaceful environment of personal growth. I think bring in spiritual reading, bringing in a quiet time to yourself, chanting, praying, I think comes in, if early, will bring in self-awareness and self-direction. But if you do it without that spirituality is all values. Spirituality is being good human beings. Reading the best of the Gita is great. You see, you can pick up the very good shlokas of the Gita, which is saying, "Tumhara kaam hai acha kaam karna." He is not saying, "Mujhe yaad karo mujhe." Krishna is saying, "Tumhara kaam hai acha karm yogi banna." So make them karm yogis. Karm yogi means doing the right thing at the right time in the right way with the right intention, and then moving on.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Bedi. I wish I could hear you more and more. My sincere apologies to all those people who have posted questions in audience, but because of the constraint of time, we could not take all of them. But we promise you one thing, we will create more and more platforms where you can hear personalities like Dr. Bedi. And my humble request to you, Dr. Bedi, this is the first time you have come on the platform of Klay, but hope it's not the last one. Please do keep visiting us with your knowledge nuggets. We would love to hear more and more from you. It's an honor to share this platform with you. And I'm sure every single person sitting in audience has his or her own takeaway through the wonderful words you have shared. Many thanks coming straight from the heart of people sitting in audience. And on behalf of Klay Schools and Daycare, I extend again a very warm gratitude to you.
Thank you, Meghna. Thank you, all
Thank you
of you.
so very
Thank
much.
you, Himanshu, and thank you, Mr. Srikanth. Thank you. And thank you, Klay.
Thanks a ton. Thanks a ton, Dr. Bedi. Hope to hear you soon again. What a wonderful input coming from Dr. Bedi about the Zen master, the environment, the developmental climate. That's what we call it technically, my friends. The developmental climate in which children are flourishing, be it at home or be it in schools. We, as significant adults in the lives of children, need to nourish that. And teachers, you are sowing the seeds for tomorrow. There is no end to the influence that a teacher can bring. And teacher, people call these powerful angels as teachers, but those teachers who are sitting in audience, I can say on their behalf, my friends, you know that you are a hero to the student in your classroom. You mean the world to them. You are the God for that child sitting in your classroom. And if you really are the hero, I can also tell you one thing: heroes do not teach through books. Heroes never teach through books, they teach through holding hearts. They hold the hearts of the children and then perform their duties. Who better than Dr. Steve Zwolak joining us straight from Missouri, USA in the wee hours, I'm sure very early morning for Steve Zwolak, but gracefully agreed to join us from Missouri to discuss this and walk us through this journey of holding heart of children and taking them towards discovery and curiosity. And I feel privileged sharing this platform with the teacher himself, and teacher that too not for 5, 10 years. He comes with rich experience of 5 decades. The man who has been a teacher for more than 50 years. And I always believe that only a teacher can empathize with another teacher. Only can teacher understand what emotions a teacher goes through. So thank you so much, Steve, for joining us straight from Missouri amidst your travel commitments. I totally appreciate your commitment and dedication and respect your presence here thoroughly.
Well, Meghna, thank you so much. And I I had the opportunity here, Dr. Bendy,
Bedi, Dr.
Bedi,
Kiran Bedi.
and pardon my ear for language, but I heard such joy and bliss in her conversations.
True, true.
What I'm going to be addressing really dovetails in to what she is saying. It really is a platform for the understanding of how important play is for children. Play is where kids get all of their emotional and social and cognitive nurturance. They're innovators. So I would love to dance with you all. I would love
We
to
are
sing
already.
with you all.
Well, I can say on behalf of teachers that they are really eager to learn from somebody with such golden heart, with white beard and a great hat wearing. Please walk us through your experience. And I would really request you to walk us through about the emotional quotient of children, why it is important, more so in today's world when we are transitioning through this pandemic,
Yeah.
that we need to hold the hearts of children. And how do we do that actually in classroom? So, teachers sitting in the audience, I would request you to look at it through a journey in your classroom when you are having a group of children. And parents who are sitting in the audience, I would request you to understand it, your role in this whole journey, because what children bring to classroom is actually what happened in the home. So, please use this opportunity to learn as much as possible through Steve. Steve has a few presentation slides to share with us, and I hope we will have tons of knowledge nuggets coming through Steve so that we can learn from you, Steve. So, would love to hear you more.
Well, again, thank you all so much. And I'm so honored to be here. And although you think it's early for me, this is my lunchtime because I usually start my day enormously early. Teaching is discovery and curiosity. If we want children to enhance and think and be curious and discoverers of the world, it's really up to teachers. And we need teachers to be discoverers and curiosity seekers in order to really hold the hearts of our children. We need to be partners with our children, and our children need to know that we are deeply there for them, that we are enormously present with them. One of the things that children are searching for today, and we have seen, with COVID, we have seen our children, at least in our world, in the U.S. and in St. Louis, our children are desperately looking for relationships. And they're not virtual relationships. They're looking for three-dimensional experiences with teachers. They're looking at three-dimensional experiences with their friends, so they can get back to the job and the work of play, and so they can have their own curiosity and their own discovery about who am I in this world? How do I fit in this world? And who's going to support me in this world? And this is really, really important as we move forward and as our own understanding of ourselves. We know that we have to give our children hope. There's a child analyst named David Winnicott, and he says every day children wake up for hope for a better day. Hope today is directly related to being cared for. Our children need to know that they are being cared for, so they have hope for the better day. Teachers need to know that they are being cared for, so they have hope for a better day. The parallel process, what we're expecting teachers to do to hold the hearts and souls of so many of our brokenhearted children today. So many. As I speak to organizations around the world, we are hearing more and more of our children demonstrating challenging behaviors. And those challenging behaviors are just saying, please hold me, love me, hold me and love me. There are some key essentials in order to understand these beliefs deeper. Some of the beliefs that we have that we know is, first of all, this is coming out of what we know the science is saying. And 50 years ago or 30 years ago, when I was deeply embedded in classroom, we didn't have all the science. We worked from our hearts, and we danced with the children in our classrooms' hearts, and we're still doing the same. But today, we know more than we've ever known before. We know that all behavior has meaning. And as we navigate the world of education, and we are greeting the children that are walking into our classrooms, whether it's 15, 17, 18, I'm working with two organizations where they have 70 children in their classrooms. No matter how many or how few children there are, we have to understand that all behavior has meaning. All behavior has meaning. The way the child walks in the classroom, the way the child approaches the blocks, the way the child approaches the dance with his friends or her friends, the way the child approaches the easel. All behavior has meaning, but that's not just for children. That's for you. How do you approach your day? What behaviors do you see? What behaviors get you upset? There's a well-known author, Tamar Jacobson, and she's written several books, but one in particular was Don't Get So Upset. And she talks about teachers who begin the learning journey when they're in their classroom observing a child's behavior. And it really starts getting to them. They start getting worked up. They start they start perspiring and getting nervous or getting angry or showing excessive love. We have to understand that child's behavior is telling us, and it's influencing how we are thinking, feeling, and emoting around what that child needs and how am I going to approach that child. The science also says that what happens early in life lasts a lifetime. What happens early in life lasts a lifetime. We know this. Neuroscience is telling us. Bruce Perry, a well-known child analyst, psychiatrist, and neuroscientist, is really studying the affect and brain development. And the first 2 months of life is so incredibly important. In the first 2 months of life, we're laying the foundation for children to know how to be attuned to the world around them. We know in the first 2 months of life that we're helping children to accept nurturing, receive nurturing. Because if kids and children do not know how to receive love, as they grow, they're not going to know how to give it. So a point to note, children have to learn how to receive love. And my question for teachers, how do you receive love? Can you receive love? And I'm going to say, if not, and if it's challenging, you're in the right profession, because you get an opportunity to help children learn how to receive love and look into the eyes of the child and see how blissful it is for the child. And you get to learn side by side with the child. We also know that the critical and rapid brain development starts in the first 5 years of life. It's developed. And some of the narrative early brain development, they would say that 90% of the brain architecture is developed in the first 5 years of life. Teachers, parents, you have the ability, working with preschool age child or parenting that preschool age child, to frame the trajectory of a child's future, change the world the way we see it. To talk about what Dr. Bedi was saying, how to play with children so their brain development learns all the ways to navigate the challenges of the world, the gifts of the world. This is what they're learning through their experiences with play. So we know all behavior has meaning. What happens early in life lasts a lifetime. And the brain, the majority of the brain function happens in the first 5 years of life. If you can believe that, if you believe that, you can influence a generation in 5 years. Pre-K educators have the ability to truly change the policy, change the trajectory, change the image of how people perceive early childhood educators. We have our finger on the pulse of what our future looks like. We're the ones who are going to have to change the language of the policymakers. We're going to have to take our practice, our operational understanding, the story about Meghna as a 5-year-old, to really demonstrate the impact of early childhood education. And we now have brain science. We have economic data that says every dollar invested in children has a 13 to 18% return on investment. We have 125 years of theory. We have 80 years of observational research. We now have research on how to support traumatized children. We have all the pieces, and every one of those pieces of science, every theory goes back to say what happens early in life can last a lifetime. You, as early childhood educators, are in the position to truly hold the hearts and souls of our children, to hold them and elevate them in a way that we have never seen before, because you are intentional teachers. So we can impact a generation in 5 years. How do we do this? How do we do this? All behavior has meaning. Being present for the child. As you can see, this is one of the children in our school who was absolutely having a true meltdown. Is he going to be ready, so to speak, for kindergarten if this is where his emotional state is? Absolutely not. The teacher has to be present for him, be with him. Being present with the child, when the child walks into the classroom, as opposed to saying, wait a minute, I'll be with you in a minute, to look at that child, every child that walks in, get down on their level and look in their eyes, because their eyes and your eyes are really demonstrating the heart and the soul of what's going to happen in that day. To develop a sense of mutuality with that child, be an authentic partner with that child, and to begin letting that child know that you are there to nurture them. So you greet them in the morning and you are present. They see you, then they can go with a sense of peace, because they now know that I am going to be your emotional partner. When we are present, we can connect with children. We can connect with their hearts and souls. And if we connect with their heart and souls, they will feel safe knowing that I am their emotional partner. And then they will be ready to learn. How many times do I have to build the blocks up and knock them down? How many times do I have to see if that ramp for my cars will work? How many times am I going to try to dance without falling or bumping into my friends? They need to know that you are present so you can connect, and then you can enhance the relationship. What we know about that essentials for our teachers, and these are really big pieces for our teachers. We have to understand our own emotional development. Teachers need to think about, okay, who am I in the life of that child? My own emotional development, my normal. When I walk into the classroom, I am bringing my life script into the classroom. I am bringing how I was raised into the classroom. I was bringing how I was taught into the classroom. And our children are looking at us. What are my capacities to form relationships with children? What is my capacity to hold the heart and soul? Who held my heart and soul when I was brokenhearted? Who was there when I needed them most? Why do I teach? Why do I teach? I teach because I love children. That's one response. But some of us teach because I want to help children be loved the way I wasn't loved, to be loved the way I was loved, to teach children how to learn the way I learned, to teach children how to learn the way I wasn't learned. So understanding our own emotional development, what's our family history? Because we walk into the classroom and we cannot leave that at the door, because when we see behaviors in children, because all behavior has meaning to us and to the child, they are looking at our responses. So understanding who you are, teachers, understanding parents, understanding who am I? You know, as a parent, I have two daughters, and as a parent, I grew up with a very angry father, and I said, I am not going to do that. And we all want to do the way we often say, I want to parent differently than I was parented. Well, it is remarkable how that our children poke at us and help us understand, are you credible? Are you going to be my emotional partner? Are you going to love me even when I am misbehaving? Are you going to love me unconditionally? So understanding our emotional development, understanding the emotional development of children is critical. And the work we do at Loom is we have a system. I actually hate to see it as called a system, but there are emotional constellations that we look at. And there's a chart behind me that really maps this out for teachers to understand the emotional development of a child, and to understand that sometimes the 5-year-old's behavior is not 5-year-old. He is a 2-year-old, or he is an infant. They want nurturing. They want limits and boundaries. So beginning to understand the emotional development of children, to understand the temperaments of children, our temperaments being am I a fearful, feisty, or flexible temperament? To begin understanding, and how do we take this into practice? Two other critical issues, and I know time is of an issue, but understanding the family history. What is the child bringing into the classroom? What is the environment that they're coming from? So as educators, we have to understand this in order to understand their emotional development, our emotional development, and temperaments of children. So Meghna, do you need us to move on?
Thank you so much, Steve, for giving us these 5 knowledge nuggets of yours. I'm sure all our teachers look forward to take their notes while they go back to classrooms, be it virtual, be it real, but all these points are very relevant. I would request, especially the teachers in audience, to post their questions right now. We already have coming up a couple of thoughts coming from audience. So my very first question coming your way, Steve. We all know that we are living in a world which is more virtual than real right now, and so is true for teaching fraternity. So probably if you can help us in understanding how to transition children from virtual platforms to real classrooms when they enter into it, that is one question coming from a teacher's heart. Also, I think teachers are interested in knowing that the crucial role this emotional development of child will play when we go forward to normal.
Yeah. So the critical piece, we have these mirroring neurons, and children desire, they need 3-dimensional interactions. So when we were in 3-dimensional world, they only had a 2-dimensional piece. So if we are staying in 2-dimensional world, we have to think about ways to reach through the screen and help the child understand that I am real on the other side of a screen. So it's really important for when we're doing virtual learning with children to involve the parent. So if the family member or a parent is next to the child, our lessons, our story, our song is directed to the parent. So the parent mirrors it to the child. And then what we're doing is turning that 2-dimensional experience into a 3-dimensional experience. And we're also getting parents involved with the child's world. So if I'm reading the book, The Runaway Bunny, and I'm talking about the bunny who's running away, and I am the mother who is following, I am speaking it to the parent, and the parent says, oh, Steve is reading about the runaway bunny. Oh, look, the bunny is running away and the mommy is coming after him. So what we're doing is creating a 3-dimensional experience from a 2-dimensional happening. and then we are forging the relationship with our child and families. Now, as we move back into in person, so thinking about when our mirroring neurons are starved for this relationship, children are going to come in to our classrooms hyper vigilant. They run the risk of coming in going, oh my gosh, I have not been in this. And everything becomes overstimulated. And they are overstimulating, and they're seeing blocks and family centers and art tables, and they're frozen because they don't know where to go first. It is sitting, and I was talking earlier, how do we have a genuine encounter with children? When they come in, understand that they have been isolated from these experiences. Oh, and by the way, there are 14 or 15 or 16 other kids in my classroom, and I haven't had that experience. So for the first few months, it is all about relationships, all. Helping them make that transition back to my friends. What is it like when a child says, I don't like you, you can't play with me? We don't have parents saying, hopefully, I don't like you, you can't play with me. So how do we help our children navigate those important challenges? And it's very relational. I talk about emotional partners. It is so important for the teachers to be emotional partners with the children. But the other piece is leaderships. The leadership has to be an emotional partner to teachers, because teachers are experiencing the same thing that our children experience. My first in-person training, there were 60 people in this room for 6 hours, and I was so hypervigilant. I am just racing all over the place. And I realized at the end of 6 hours, I was so exhausted and just so spent, because I haven't been in front of people like that for a long time. And these mirroring neurons are giving us feedback on everybody's body language. The mirroring neurons are reading what's going on in the classroom, and it's very nuanced. And for teachers to be in a classroom from virtual to all of a sudden, you have these kids racing all over the place. And if you're working with toddlers, we already know that toddlers in a 20-minute span are probably in about 30 to 50 different places.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
put 16 of those in a classroom. What's it do, and how's it fatigue teachers? So teachers need to figure out, how do we help them learn about their own self-care?
So many important points coming from you, Steve, and I'm sure all the people, like you said, people sitting in the leadership positions, please take note of that. When we transition to normal, it is not only important to take care of children and families, it is equally important to invest in teachers and their well-being, because if they are also coming after pandemic and going through this transition, through our mirroring neurons, we are creating a developmental climate for children, and we really need each other's support in that. Thank you so very much, Steve, for walking us through your rich experience. A person with 50 years of classroom experience, nothing can beat it, and for sure for that, the time is not enough. So, Steve, my apologies to all those teachers who have posted questions, but we cannot take it due to limitation of time. But thank you so very much for sharing your knowledge nuggets with us. And for sure, we promise that to each its own, we will take your lessons, your teachings in classrooms when we work with children as teachers. Thanks very much, Steve, for joining us straight from USA and sharing this platform.
Meghna, thank you so much. And to all of our teachers out there, have hope. And you are the hope. You are the hope for children, and you are the hope for yourself.
Thank you so much
sending love.
Thank you so much, Steve, for, in my own Indian way, I need to thank you for giving us this ray of hope. We all know, my friends, that children are priority, but change is reality. Children are priority and change is reality. So the only possible option is collaboration. Collaboration is a strategy. We have heard it from the teachers and the heart of the teacher we just saw. But my friends, education is a shared commitment. It is a shared commitment of dedicated teachers, motivated students, and enthusiastic parents. And until and unless we hear it from enthusiastic parents themselves, we won't be able to get the real picture, the way we should enter into this partnership, the way we should play our role to make this partnership stronger. We have to hear both sides of the stories. We just heard it from the heart of a teacher, but we need to see the enthusiasm and the challenges and the journey under pandemic that our beautiful set of parents have gone through. And to have this showcase, I would request Janani Gangadhar to join me. My dear colleague, young and enthusiastic, comes with a very bright smile and rich experience of 9 years in communications. I learned a lot while working with her, and so much to learn from this young lot of people that I get opportunity to work with, not only in the summit but throughout the events that we host for children and parents. Janani has worked in Dell and Amazon, and I sincerely feel that all the content, whatever you see over here, Janani has played some little role in that to bring it to this platform. So, Janani, I would love to take you us through these set of enthusiastic parents who can actually show us the reality, what happened on ground through their presentations.
Thank you so much, Meghna, for your very kind introduction. I'm super excited to be here to host our first ever parent showcase session on Klay's International Summit on Early Years. There are actually a couple of reasons why we decided to host this unique format this time around. The first is, of course, that as a brand, we've always believed in providing a platform to facilitate peer learning among our parent community and also create a lot of relatable content. In addition to that, over the last couple of years, we've had the privilege and the pleasure to interact with the best minds, the best experts, parent advocates, parent influencers. And this is our small way of paying tribute to all the great work that they do for you, our parent community, and for all their knowledge. So here we are with a great lineup of 4 parent influencers who are here from very, very diverse, backgrounds and with diverse perspectives, who will be sharing their stories, sharing their experiences on how they have navigated their child's learning journey in the pandemic, starting March 2020, within a span of 5 minutes each. And possibly we will also be able to explore the evolving role of parents and teachers through them. So with that very brief context, I call upon our very first showcase presenter, Vaishali. Vaishali is best known for her work, well-researched work around the Montessori learning approach. In fact, she can be credited with pioneering this learning approach in India, primarily through her blog, Amma Today, where she simplifies and demystifies this entire approach for us. She is the author of 2 children's books. She is an educator with rich on-ground experience working with differently abled children and a very prominent social media voice on gentle, guilt-free, fuss-free, child-led parenting. And at a time when US parents are extremely concerned about the academic learning of children, here is Vaishali to tell you that learning can happen anytime, anywhere, and in spite of your parental intervention. So over to you, Vaishali. Without taking away too much of your time, I will leave the stage for your presentation.
Thank you so much, Janani. Hi, everyone. So my children are 5 years old and 1 year old. And as expected, the pandemic has thrown every aspect of our lives into chaos, including education. So when I was asked to speak about the parents' role in education, I wondered, when does education begin for a child? When do they start learning? Nursery, pre-KG, when they start school? But what if my child starts school at grade 5? Does it mean they're not learning until then? No education happens until then? Or is it simply that it was not assessed formally until then? So then we come to the question, what is our role as parents then in this education, especially now when the line between the parent and the teachers have come closer? And also considering that not all of us parents have backgrounds in education, most of us have full-fledged jobs, and most of us are trying to bridge the gap in online schooling. So, Maria Montessori once famously said that the goal of early childhood education, that is from birth to 6 years, should be to activate the child's natural desire to learn, to help humans know who they are and what they must do to achieve self-realization, to improve their own lives and to improve others' lives. We also know now that the child learns best sensorially. So as parents, we need to provide maximum sensory exploration experiences to the child. But how can we do this at home? We do not have the resources or the money or the time for these educational materials. Or do we? Let us take my favorite place in my house, the kitchen. There is so much education happening in the kitchen. There is math. Let's count how many potatoes we have. Can we sort the potatoes and tomatoes, please? Can we measure 2 cups of rice for the khichdi? There is science. Why is the mango seed so much bigger than the orange seeds? I wonder how fermentation takes place. How does rice get cooked in this pressure cooker? There is coding following a series of steps. You peel the potato, you put the skin on one side, you put the potato in a bowl on the other side. There is a lot of language, vocabulary, syntax, conversations. There is spatial awareness, arranging spoons and cutlery in an optimal way in the spoon stand, navigating around the kitchen without banging or clanging or making those sounds. And lastly, before I get really hungry, there is the development of self-esteem, the joy of contributing positively to the family, productively to the family. We made the potato sabzi together. Thank you so much for your help today. But let's face it, we cannot stay with our children 24/7. How do we facilitate learning when we are busy and involved in our own work? We prepare the environment with a lot of care and love so that the child can explore independently and satisfy their sensorial needs. So, for example, we prepare shelves, or if we don't have shelves, the lowest rack of cupboards, yes, spaces for the child to take what they want independently without waiting for the adult to decipher what they need and then hand it over to them. Small stools or step stools to reach higher wash basins or sinks or higher shelves. Dangerous objects above their level so that there is safe spaces, artwork at their level to enjoy and appreciate. Books, plenty of books to open up their world, especially when they're cooped up inside right now. But you know what, this sounds great. What about the learning concepts like the alphabet, the science formulae, mathematical operations, naming the countries and their capitals? What if my child falls behind? And I'm going to take you through one more example. Please bear with me. When I cook biryani, and I cook an amazing biryani, what is visible is the plate loaded with food and polished off in under 5 minutes. But what is not visible are the years I've spent learning how to handle a pressure cooker, how to chop vegetables, understanding spices, understanding the different kinds of rice, trial and error with the millions of recipes, learning how to scale up, and finally, boom, arriving at my perfect recipe. And you know where it all started? With the desire to want to cook, want to explore my culinary talents. So maybe our concept of education needs to widen a little bit. Before we push into academic work, maybe we should spend time in laying a strong foundation that only we can lay at home. So in conclusion, I want to say that everything that we do to the young child is education, and every prepared adult who does it is an educator. We educate at the dining table by modeling how to eat with the right cutlery. We educate in the restroom by talking about hygiene and washing hands. And by being the adult that we would like our child to be, we model and we educate humanity itself. Coming back to our question, when does education truly begin? Our children are always learning. Education begins right at birth. The way we gently speak to our babies, respect their body autonomy, teaching compassion to them by being compassionate individuals ourselves. We as parents, I think, have the ability and the power to educate our children simply by keeping the spark of learning burning bright. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Vaishali. And I must say, thank you for sharing so much of yourself. While there are lots of experts who share concepts at a very conceptual level, we've seen you through the years, actually share how you've implemented this particular learning approach, just going by your content that you have online. So we thank you a lot for that. And I will move on to the next presenter. We have a very special guest up next, a dad this time, who's working very hard to put other dads on the map, to present parenting from the perspective of fathers by creating a platform for fathers to share their stories, express their feelings, their experiences of fatherhood, and connect with each other at a very deep level. A digital marketer by profession, Nadir also is the producer and co-host of Pops in a Pod, a podcast focusing on fatherhood that he began with his colleague Peter. Welcome, Nadir, and I think you come at a very timely manner when, amidst a lot of negative sentiment around online learning, you're here to present a very positive perspective. So can't wait to hear from you. I'm sure it'll be reassuring for a lot of parents to hear your learnings and takeaways. So over to you.
Thank you so much, Janani. Really appreciate that wonderful introduction. Keeping the time frame in mind, I'm going to dive straight in. So yes, this is my journey, my experience of what I learned from 1 year of online schooling. To give perspective, I have a 5-year-old toddler. The first thing that comes to mind is leadership, right? A child will always look up to her parents, and this taught me to be a good leader, because this is what I noticed in 1 year when I was witnessing her doing her schoolwork. I have a lot of power over this tiny little human being, right? And she expects me to lead her properly, right? And that puts a lot of pressure on me as a parent, because I know I'm responsible. If I exude confidence, my child absorbs that confidence, right? And she also then becomes confident herself, because that in itself is extremely, extremely important. And if I'm going to be very unreasonable, like, well, in our professional career, our bosses tend to get unreasonable. But if I'm extremely unreasonable, the child's outcome is going to be severely affected. And I feel that the day that we stop leading, we also tend to stop learning, which brings to my next point, which is learning. And I think this is one of the most important aspects that I have learned, that when your child learns, you learn, because the most important lesson that I have learned is that we as parents have to continue to learn along with our kids, right? And that is why your education cannot be outsourced wholly and solely to institutes and schools. It's a partnership, and the sooner we realize it, the better it is for our children. And Steve also did bring it up in his presentation earlier about the importance of your teachers. You have to work together, right? And please remember that as a parent, just because you've become a parent, that doesn't mean that your journey to learn has stopped. In fact, it has just begun. My next point is respect. It's very simple. Respect given is respect earned, right? We need to recognize our child's intelligence, right? We know for a fact that she is very smart. Unfortunately, we put intelligence in very traditional sense. Do you know your words? Do you know your numbers? Do you know your concepts? Do you know your definition? But to recognize their latent talents is so important in making certain life-changing decisions. We hear a lot of parents saying, things like, "Oh, just look at him. He knows his alphabet so well. Just look at her. She knows her numbers and math so well," right? And I have seen the damage it has done to my daughter, because I was one of those parents, and I did compare her. It's very natural. It happens in the heat of the moment. And this is something that I've realized that we need to stop. It's going to take time, but eventually it has to stop. And that's a sense of respect that you pass on to your child. And yes, you have to respect your teachers. School is just not school. right? In this lockdown, it is a means of socializing and fraternizing with other kids, and teachers have become the strongest anchor for them today. My next point is what I've truly embraced is the aspect of independence. Uh, it is one thing of wonder that a little freedom can, do to children. Fear will only restrict them. So we need to help them to break those shackles and let them explore. They will learn much, much faster. And this is something that I have learned through experience. It is perfectly all right if they go wrong. They are bound to make mistakes. But do not forget that if they try something for themselves later on through experience, they'll realize and they'll think twice before making that same mistake. But you've got to let them be. And I think this is a magic statement, which is ask them, don't tell them. We need to start treating them like little grown ups. The results, trust me, will surprise you. Allow independent thinking. I'd like to give you a small example over here. So, in a recent class survey done at my daughter's school, the teachers asked the parents what is that one quality they would like their children to learn as a priority. And a lot of parents said independence, independent thinking. But see, here's the irony, right? With online schooling, most of the parents are sitting next to their kids, prompting them answers. And I think that's the biggest disservice that we are doing to our kids. And it is our duty as parents to make that child independent. The school will only facilitate it, and that's fine. It's their job to help them. But if it means to leave the room and let your child be alone in class, it's perfectly all right. It's better that we do it. And my last point is acknowledgement. This is something that I learned and I want to treasure it for as long as I can. We are so busy, right? Liking each other's posts and acknowledging people and people's posts on social media, but we forget that there is a little creator in our own homes, and we should acknowledge the kind of thing that she does. Acknowledge every little piece of work that your child does, because you mean the world to them. Your child will come to you no matter what, with every little thing, no matter what it is. Acknowledge it. And no matter how busy you are, I'm sure you can pull away from your screen for a few seconds to look at your son or your daughter and just say a few words of encouragement, or even a simple gesture as, a thumbs up in real life. And with that, I would definitely like to, bring this presentation to a close. And this was my experience and my learning through 1 year of online schooling.
Thanks a lot, Nagar, for such an honest presentation. I'm sure this was every early years practitioner's dream come true to see your presentation. You sort of struck all the right chords, and I hope it was a time of self-reflection for parents as well. With that, I move on to our next showcase presenter, our very own Namrata Sadhwani. I say very own because we've been associated for a very long time. And if you've been following Klay on our social media channels, there is a very slim chance that you would have missed all the great work that Namrata has been doing. And in my attempt to introduce her, I keep wondering if there is, anything that she doesn't do. She is the editor of the Hyderabad edition of Momspresso. She volunteers with the women's rights organization, and she's a very powerful, influential social media personality as well. And in addition to all of this, she is the mother of an adorable set of twin boys. And today she is here. In fact, Namrata would want to, let you know that a lot of parents from even our community, express this concern which you're addressing today, which is the lack of physical exercise that children in the pandemic have been facing. So without taking too much of your time, I will pass on the stage to you to talk about how physical exercise has impacted the learning curve of your boys.
Thank you so much, Janani, for that wonderful introduction. It is indeed an honor to be here, to be a part of this International Summit on Early Years. And yes, like you very rightly said, I've been associated with Klay for the longest time, and I love all the work that you do. So,
just one note, Namrata, I can't see your screen. If you could just check that once. I can see your presentation, though. I can't see you on screen. If you could just check your camera once.
Okay, so my camera is on. I think I'll just go ahead with the presentation. So
Sure,
let's,
that should work.
yeah. All right. So, we all started the new normal in March 2020, and little did we know that we're going to pick up our kids from school one day and they're not going to be seeing their friends and their teachers and their school for a considerable amount of time. I remember very clearly the date because it was my kid's birthday just a couple of days after the lockdown started. March 13, 2020, I picked up my kids from school and they've never gone back since then. We only had online classes, and I shared this picture of my family because this was literally us 2 days before the lockdown was announced in the country. We had relatives over. This was our family all together. Never did we imagine that we're going to face such a challenging time in the next 18 months. Education has taken a 360-degree turn from no smartphones in school to all learning being done using smart devices. And of course, this has taken a long time for all stakeholders to get used to, whether it's the parents, whether it's teachers, the students, the admin staff. But all of us have worked so hard to ensure that our kids adapt to this new normal. So before I actually get on to the start of my presentation, I'd just like to say that I'm speaking from the perspective of somebody who lives in a joint family. There are 8 of us who stay together, my husband's brother, his wife, and their boys as well. So we have four very active boys in our family. And I also speak from the perspective of being a parent of slightly older kids. So they're a little better in the sense that it's easier for them to understand what's going on in the world right now, and why we are all indoors most of the time, and they're able to fathom that these changes are as much necessary for us as it is for the world and the betterment of everybody around. So and I'm going to be speaking about how physical activity has actually kept us sane during the lockdown. And I speak this from experience because physical activity has always been a part of our lives, and we've always been into some form of fitness or the other. The picture on the left is actually of all of us in August 2019 at the Hyderabad Marathon. We all ran the marathon in various capacities. We've always been into some form of fitness or the other, and in the building, outside of it, cricket, tennis, yoga, something or the other. And that has truly helped us not only bond together as a family, but also kept us going through this lockdown, and what could potentially have become very difficult situations of children being on screens all the time was avoided because our children actually have never asked for screens. They've been so involved in all physical exercises. So, like I said, physical activity has been helpful to deal with the lockdowns. As a family, we've all made it a point ever since the start of the lockdown to exercise together, because not only did it help us bond as a family, it also helped in release of all that pent up energy that we had, our kids had, and that really helped them with going through the rest of the day. We were in the confines of our home, but we found solace in online physical activity, online fitness classes, yoga classes in the building, and so many things that we did together. Our kids we installed a home gym, sort of like a mini gym in our homes, and literally all our kids enjoyed it so much. Physical activity has helped not only our kids but also the adults. All our pent up excessive energy is released, which has actually helped us be in good mood throughout the day, because otherwise it's really difficult to sort of handle all of the kids. And also it has helped in their education, because every time my kids learned a new move in yoga, in fitness, they were so excited to tell their teachers and their classmates about it. And that the teachers actually encouraged that during the classes online. They were encouraged to show those moves to the children. Other children used to join in and say, okay, you learned this, now I learned this, watch me as I do my move. And that actually put all the kids in a really good mood for the rest of the classes, because with older kids, they stand a chance of getting bored with their classes, which didn't happen because the boys continuously experimented with showing each other what they could do and what new things they had learned. As parents, we became their facilitators. I know we're running out of time, but just 2 quick points. We became the facilitators, as in we encouraged our kids to do these physical activities and also exhibit them to their classmates. The teachers were wonderfully receptive to the same idea as well. We also understood that It is the teachers who have actually held our kids together throughout this whole 18 months of online schooling. They've had to upskill their skills in the shortest possible time, but they've made it so interesting for our children. And truly, I want to take this platform to thank every teacher out there who has helped children in every capacity to sort of go through this lockdown and this whole online schooling that we've been through so easily. So with that, I conclude, and thank you so much, Klay, for giving me this opportunity again.
Thank you, Namrata, for actually saying that to all the teachers who are here. I'm sure they're happy about it, and we've definitely enjoyed seeing you transform your home into a mini gym. So thank you for sharing all your stories with us. With that, due to the paucity of time, I will move on to our last and final presenter. We have with us Geetika Sasan Bhandari, who is a seasoned journalist with over 2 decades of experience in journalism, working with reputed publications such as the Times of India and India Today. In fact, in the last 10 years, she has worked primarily on topics relating to parenting, and in the recent past has spoken on pertinent topics like learning loss and the balance between online and offline learning, and how the pandemic has impacted parenting as a whole. She has her own weekly column in the Indian Express, and she also has her own parenting platform called Let's Raise Good Kids. Geetika, without wasting too much time, I will pass on the stage to you for you to talk about how your children have transitioned to physical school sometime late last year in India and early this year in Nigeria. And thank you, Geetika, for coming to us with all your insights all the way from Nigeria.
Thank you so much, Janani, and hello to everybody from Africa. So yes, like you've already said, my family was in India for the first 8 months of the lockdown. And then we moved back here in October last year. And because the cases here were under control, so schools started opening from November onwards in a staggered way. So children would go to school maybe 2 days a week. Certain classes would go on some days and some on some. But then after January, after the holidays, from February onwards, kids have been going to physical school every day. So my children have been physically in school for the last 6 months. So that's the perspective that I'm coming from. And what I really want to say is that while this is can be a roadmap for returning to physical school, everybody, of course, has their own unique journey. So I hope, parents can see this and get some takeaways. Now, what I noticed is that some schools did it really well, and I have picked up the best practices from them. My children go to 2 different schools, and there was a clear difference between how the 2 operated, because of which one school has not had a single case, whereas the other school has continuously had outbreaks of COVID. So some of the best practices, we know about the hand sanitizing, temperature, there were no air conditioners, windows were left open throughout. Children were allowed to take mask breaks, younger children, that's my younger daughter there. They were allowed to take mask breaks for 5 minutes at their very desk, open it so they could breathe and then put it back on. The school changed the dispersal gate so that there was no congregation of parents and everybody at one gate, which is what used to happen earlier. So now it was a different gate for primary, different for secondary, and different for early years. So that kind of kept the crowds away. We didn't have any parent-teacher meetings or anything like that. All reports, everything was sent online. No sports and no co-curricular activities happened as well in school. Then the other thing that I felt really helped was that they stopped school meals. There was no going to the lunch hall. We sent everything. So you can see my daughters often complained that I was giving them way too much food because I didn't want them to be hungry. So I was giving enough food to last the day and more. But there was no sharing of food or water allowed. They ate at their own desk. They sanitized the table before. They had to wash their hands after. And after a while, they started getting allowed to go down to the playground for a little while, but only in a certain bubble. And even the staff and the cleaning staff, the teachers and the cleaning staff also worked in bubbles. So in case there was a breakout in one bubble, the entire bubble could be isolated. Because if you have a teacher who is in more than one bubble, then it defeats the whole purpose, right? So everything was done in a way that one whole bubble could be isolated should the need arise. Now, like we know and we have been discussing, this is collective responsibility. It is a circle of safety. If anybody breaks that circle, that entire circle gets affected. So it is equally important that while school is, adhering to those protocols, as parents, we have to be very, very careful as well. So there were some things that we instituted and we did at home every single day. I would insist that the minute the children came back, they would go straight for a bath without meeting anybody. And I have my mother-in-law at home who's 80 years old. So it was very imperative to keep her away from any sort of infection risk. Then I gave them spare mask every day. And in the middle of the day, they would discard one mask and wear the other because this is a humid place and it can get very sweaty. Of course, sanitizer, extra tissue, washing the lunch bag, the school bag, no birthday playdates or parties, only online ones. And you know what we often tend to do earlier, we used to pick up the child, go quickly to the supermarket, do it all the errands in the same trip. But I made a clear cut, decision not to do that. It would be just pick up the school and back home so that you're avoiding all exposure. What I want to say is that despite all of this, your child can still get COVID. It can happen. My child did. My 15-year-old got COVID in November, 3 weeks after starting school. But the minute she developed fever, which was very mild, we isolated her from that very night. The next day, we tested the whole family and we isolated her for 2 weeks. My younger child didn't go to school. My husband didn't go. They operated from home for 14 days because it is very important that all of us are equally responsible. We informed the school immediately. It was a Friday. I felt school might take time to disseminate the message. So I sent out a message on the WhatsApp group so other parents could be vigilant whose child had been in touch with my child. And in fact, parents were very thankful. I kept the school informed of her progress and I made sure that, she had the laptop with her. So after a day or two, when 2-3 days, when the symptoms became less, she got back into her online classes and that routine helped her pass time. And the other thing I want to say is, on an ending note, is that, like Steve also said, when our children go back to classes, we have to understand they are looking at us and the teachers and looking at our behavior for cues. So if you operate from a place of fear, then that is how the child is going to be. You should operate from a place of learning, encouragement, curiosity, hope, enthusiasm, optimism. And when the child comes back home, don't pounce on the child immediately and say, was somebody sneezing? Was somebody coughing? Because then the child is also going to get nervous. So I think try and be as normal as possible. And together, I feel we can really sort of heal this world step by step and help our children transition back to physical school. Thank you.
Thanks, Geetika. Very, very important points. And it comes at a very relevant time in India when we're looking at opening schools. So I hope this was very useful for the parents who had logged in today, who are logged in today. And while all of you, and before I let you go, while all of you have, very nonchalantly spoke of all your experiences, I could sense a lot of science, backed insights that you all presented. And who better than Meghna Yadav, to sort of put some perspective there and share her thoughts on the session overall.
What a wonderful session from each and every parent. First of all, parents, take a bow. Not only those present on the screen, but across globe, take a bow. I'm sure it's not an easy journey, and you all have played multiple roles, multiple hats. Nothing can beat it. Nothing can compare your efforts. But one thing that I would like to say, Janani, you allowed me to watch this through audience. So thank you so very much. I could see the perspective from the audience, and it was wonderful to watch these knowledge nuggets coming from parents. So thanks a ton, Janani, to Vaishali, to Namrata, Nadir, and Gitika. Nothing can convey our heartfelt gratitude to you. Amidst your busy schedule, you not only created the presentation, but also walked us through what exactly parents have gone through under pandemic. A bit of science coming from each one of you, probably knowingly or unknowingly, something we don't know. But yes, I do see that you were touching base upon developmental climate. Vaishali was talking about sensorial approach. In fact, I would say parents don't keep it indoors. Even when you are going outdoors, talk about four senses, walk with your children. The only thing to keep away is the sense of touch. But otherwise, sense of taste. Otherwise, everything is out there. Please explore sensorially throughout the nature as well. And Gitika, you talked about the bubbles. I would recommend and for sure request parents about bringing social bubbles in life already. Have it at home. Choose those 2, 3 families. Allow your children to mingle so that they are future ready, school ready. And Namrata and Nadir, some quick takeaways coming from you about developmental climate. I really totally appreciate the bringing the gym in the home. And one significant aspect, Nadir, that you have just shared, acknowledgement. So here comes my acknowledgement to each and every parent. Hats off to each one of you. Thank you so much for walking us through this wonderful presentation. The more we acknowledge each other, the more we will acknowledge our children's efforts. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moving on, friends, we heard from the parents' hearts, we heard from the heart of a teacher, but it is impossible to move forward when we are transitioning from such deadly pandemic. We have to have a vision ahead. We have to have a systemic approach towards this partnership. Parents and teachers play a crucial role, but there are multiple stakeholders who are equally important, if not more, to take this journey to reality. Until and unless we see it through a bird eye view, probably this partnership will remain in our dreams and we won't be able to see the reality of this partnership. To have this very productive discussion coming next to us, I have few great personalities joining us for the panel discussion on systemic approach to ensure the school parent partnership. The very first in line is a mother, an entrepreneur, Shreya Mittal, joining us with her rich experience coming from alumni of LSR and MIT. Shreya Mittal is the founder for Curious Cup, and she is a mother herself. I really look forward to hear more and more from you, Shreya, and very warm welcome to this platform. Shreya, you are on mute. Can you please unmute yourself and
Thank you, Meghna, for the wonderful introduction and this opportunity to speak to everyone about our experience, both as an entrepreneur and as a mother to a toddler who's almost born during pandemic. She was born 3 months before the pandemic. So it has been quite a ride, and I would love to share my experience on this platform.
Thanks, Shreya. Really looking forward to hear from you and your journey as well. Next in line, joining us, Dr. Swati Popat-Watts, a name which needs no introduction in the field of early childhood education, an expert with rich experience of 34 years. I really respect the great work you have been doing, Dr. Watts, and it is an honor to have you here. She is known for her contribution through education in all the curriculum platforms. She motivates parents to play their integral role in early years of education. Very warm welcome to you, Dr. Watts.
Thank you so much for having me here. And I've been listening to the previous speakers and wonderful tips given by them.
So true, so true. So much to take in just few hours. You are very right in that. Well, we are sure that we will learn a lot while we listen to people like you and Dr. Brinda. Dr. Brinda Datta is known for her contribution in policy and making policy to reality. Dr. Brinda Datta has completed her term as Director of Center for Early Childhood Education and Development at Ambedkar University in Delhi. She has also been working as a professor and known for her contribution through Association for Early Childhood Education and Development. So much to learn and so much of rich experience that you come up with, Dr. Brinda Datta. A very warm welcome.
Thank you so much. I really am very delighted to be here. And I really look forward to this interaction that we are going to have with the panelists and the wonderful event that you're having. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Dr. Datta. I know your busy schedule, but thank you for taking time out of that. Last but not the least, joining us for panel discussion, Shweta Guhan, a young, bubbly girl, but comes with so much of work on ground, especially through her Key Education Foundation, a not-for-profit organization working for quality early childhood education from low-income communities in India. Not an easy job for sure, Shweta. We can easily talk about education in higher income segments of India, but taking it to remote possible areas of India, hats off to you, kudos to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Meghna. That's a very bright introduction. And I'm hoping some of the experience and work that we've been doing can add a new perspective today as well to the conversation. Very excited to be part of this panel. And I hope today kind of leaves us all with something to think about.
Oh, yeah, sure. As a learner, I'm looking forward for that as well. Thank you so much, each and everyone, for joining us from different parts of the country and bringing so many thought processes right over here. My first question goes to Dr. Swati without too much ado, simply because we would love to hear from you, Dr. Swati. You are the person who has worked both with parents and teachers. And since we are talking about partnership, I would request you to take us a year back and tell us, how have you seen this partnership evolving, or is it dynamic role of parent and teacher that helps us in understanding where this partnership is going in future?
Thank you, Meghna. And I'm happy that you are taking a step back and telling me to talk about where it all started, because we cannot ignore where we were and where we have reached now and where we are planning to go. So I think it kind of fits in very well. So I think when it all started, everybody was confused. The teachers were confused because, we say COVID warriors, but one of the things that my doctor said when I visited him and I said, salute to you, you are a COVID warrior. And he said, no, ma'am, salute to teachers, because we doctors are still working in the same environment. We are still seeing patients, we are still doing the work, but it's the teachers who had to completely do a 360-degree turn because they are not in their classrooms. They have had to change the way they reach out to children. There had been academicians who were criticizing virtual learning when it started. There were parents who were not happy with it. And there were teachers who had to start learning technology because they didn't know heads or tail of technology. And his words kind of made me feel so good that, yes, actually speaking, teachers have done a huge, huge learning to adapt to the new normal. And in fact, I think we should say it's a normal now, because the new is now quite old. And at the beginning, there was a feeling of mistrust, I would say, between parents and schools, especially teachers, that are they doing what is right for my child? Are they doing it for money? Are they doing it because it's required for my child, or only to keep the teachers in their jobs? And it required a lot of hard work to get that trust factor in, to get that community of parents and teachers working together, listening to each other, and understanding what each other are going through. Because it's so easy to say virtual learning, but when you think about those 20 or 25 children who are attending the session from their homes, and then you think of about 20 to 25 uh, cookers going, the whistles going off at the same time or at different times, it required adjustments from everybody. Think about the teacher who also has a child of her own doing virtual learning at the same time as she is doing virtual learning for her class. So many adjustments. And for me, the role was dual, because A, I'm running a chain of schools. So I have to think of my teachers, my parents. And B, I am also the president of the Early Childhood Association, where we had thousands of preschool owners reaching out to us. What do we do? We don't know what to do. So it was like every stakeholder had to be kept, we had to have the trust, we had to have the training, and we had to give them the support that they required, because it's not been an easy time. So it's very, very important to understand that there was a lot of blame game that happened both in the media and otherwise. Parents blaming schools, schools blaming parents, teachers worried about 25 parents supervising them together in the virtual class. There were parents who were butting in during sessions. There were centers closing down. So it required a lot of resilience building. And I think that is where everybody did their best. All associations, all organizations worked on that. Because as one of your previous speakers said, that children look up to us, and the same goes for educators and parents. If we are constantly worried and anxious, we will not be able to pass on that confidence to parents about this new normal. And that is why it's very important to understand that we have to work with each of the stakeholders, because as they say, it takes a village to raise a child.
True. It takes a village to raise a child. Very true. And I can totally sense Shreya relating it with what you are saying. Shreya being the mother and an entrepreneur, I would say you have two babies to take care, Shreya. Do you resonate with just what Dr. Swati said about parents and the dynamic role change and the contribution that parents had to make or had to bring in education of children? Do you resonate a little, or you have difference of opinion here?
I completely thank you, Meghna, and thank you, Dr. Swati, for the wonderful thought. I completely resonate with what Dr. Swati was talking about, teachers having to work extremely hard. From personal experience, I've seen that, a teacher would come to school at 9 and leave at 3 o'clock and then spend time with the day. But now when you reach out to a teacher, even at 11 p.m., they reply in 10 minutes. That simply means that how hard they have to work. Not only do they have to conduct the classes, but post that. So, and it's been hard for parents too, right? As an entrepreneur and a mom to a young daughter, it's been crazy, right? I never used to get up that early. Now get up at 4 o'clock to work so that I can focus on my daughter post that. So today, what I would want to focus really is that parents do have to do their duty as a parent, but at the same time, they have to fit in the shoe of an educator as well, because through virtual learning, however hard teachers try, they're not able to do as much they could do in a physical setting.
Yeah.
But what I feel is that if we can draw some positive out of it, or what we can say we get most out of this time, is that we are able to learn how to teach our kids from the best educators in this country. So earlier, when the child would go to a school, they would only get a bird's eye view of how concepts are taught. We as parents wouldn't know how teachers teach those concepts. For example, phonics, you would just know that, S was taught. You wouldn't know how they taught them. But due to virtual learning, we are able to shadow our children and see how exactly the best educators in our country are teaching those concepts to our children. And it's providing us an opportunity to learn and then mimic it during our time with the children. So we are able to reinforce those concepts in a better way. And over the last 1-2 years, once you start mimicking the teachers, it will not only help you in just 2 years, but I think it goes beyond that, right? You learn how to teach, because we don't have, as parents, you don't have training to teach. And teachers go through years of training. So it's sort of a virtual training, not just for your kids, but as a parent, you're getting that training. So that is one thing which I think is just to find light in that darkness sort of a situation.
And perfectly true. And sorry, you were saying something, Shreya?
No, continue.
And I can see that the contribution that parents of urban India has made. And I seriously wonder, while sitting in these rooms and watching together with Klay Preschools parents as well, Shweta, can you tell us, is it the reality on ground in remote areas as well? Are parents really contributing, and how is it going about the learning curve for children in low income families as well? Can you give us that perspective, since you have been working with them for years now?
Sure. Meghna, thank you, Shreya and Dr. Swati, for your thoughts, because the conversation is very similar, right? If the parents that we work with in a low-income urban community or an urban slum in Bangalore or in semi-urban communities via government interventions, the inherent challenge is the same, right? In terms of parents not being able to make the time. At the start, of course, like Dr. Swati said, the struggle was, I think the difference is the struggle was for the basics, right? They did not have the funds. They lost their jobs. So there was a lot of scrambling. One is at the school level and people like us saying, okay, how do we now take early learning remote? But there's also the parents struggling to make basics meet. So it took some time. I think for them to get on the bandwagon of remote learning took probably double the time as it did for a lot of us from slightly more privileged backgrounds. But having said that, one thing that did not change, right, which has blown me away, is parent aspirations. Every parent has extremely high aspirations for their children to learn and grow and do well. And that has not changed during the pandemic, right? We've done a ton of pilots as an organization, sending content through WhatsApp, sending kits into the communities, working at the community level to build parents' capacities on what early learning means, what is expected of you, and they show up, right? They will show up and every parent will give it their all. Some parents may do the activity at 9 p.m. And initially, I, as an educator, found myself judging them a little bit. But later, I realized here's this parent who's worked a 16-hour day and is wanting to spend 45 minutes doing an activity. So the aspirations are still high. And I think the reason I'm acknowledging that is it gives you a window of opportunity to create solutions that work. At a challenge level, right? The only last comment is challenges have evolved. Access, finance, that remains a challenge. But I see a recent challenge that I was discussing with my team that I thought I'll just share is the concern is even us as educators have taken the school into the house, right? Parents are having to redefine themselves as educators. But I see this as a double-edged sword. Yes, parents are learning, but parents are becoming teachers and forgetting to be parents. I see a lot of my parents strictly making their children take an exam or making the or feeling I have to now discipline. I cannot hug, love, just spoil my child. And sometimes that safe space comes from that, right? So today's challenge for our parents is I am an educator and a caregiver, but I'm not a traditional teacher, and I need to negotiate that role. And we personally are struggling to communicate that to our parents as well. So that's really one of our larger
But it's
challenges.
strong message and a reminder coming from your end, I would say, Shweta. So parents who are listening to us in audience, let's be a parent. It is easier said than done. I myself going through that as a mother of two. But yes, you have raised a very important point that are we missing on our own natural instincts of parenting? And who better than Dr. Datta sharing this more with us in terms of the ecosystem, the whole society? Where do you see the shift, Dr. Datta? Since you have the opportunity to have the word eye view, I would really request you to tell us the whole ecosystem of ECE and education per se. Where are we heading towards?
It's dynamic at this point of time because there is so much to create and learn and face the new situation. But as we know that parent engagement in the field of early childhood has always been given importance. And we have also seen through our researches that when parents are involved, the achievement of children is learning outcomes of children are much higher.
True.
And also recently the brain research has been talking about how fundamental it is to have adult interaction, parent interaction for the development of children. Now, looking at all this, you see at the international level, there is a lot of discussion on how, like WHO is talking about responsive parenting, responsive care, and many other foundations are talking about playful parenting. So all this is basically trying to show that there is a very important role that parents play in the field of early childhood, not only for education, but the holistic development that we are talking and the kind of empowerment the parent needs to carry on this role and help the children in the development. Now, this you also see reflected in our own understanding of the national education policy, where for the first time we are talking of early childhood, and we're talking of 3 to 8 as the foundational stage. So, at a policy level, I think the policy is also emphasizing all through the document the parent and community involvement. So if I go to see that the ecosystem already has this thing that we need parents, we need to have the partnership with parents. Now the thing is that because in the pandemic the situation is so fluid, at this point of time there is no policy or a direction that can happen very easily. The learnings are coming from the field, like all have contributed in showing the experiences, and in the earlier session how parents have also told how different ways they have taken to adapt to the whole thing. So I think all this learning is what is important, and I think when we gather this knowledge and then we are ready for the new normal, then perhaps at the policy level we will be able to say how the ecosystem should be responding, should be now at the moment I think we are all experimenting, trying to do the best that we can, and that happens at different levels. It can happen at the government level, it can happen at the state level, or it can happen at the program level. So everywhere you find these efforts happening, and therefore the responses of the ecosystems are many and innovative.
So true, and it's so interesting to hear these different perspectives. While we are talking about all this, some quick words coming from each one of you, I would really love to hear. So, Shweta, since you are talking about this very, very important challenge, parenting role, how do you find solutions to it? Some quick solutions that you can suggest to the crowd here, which will be their takeaway.
In terms of, just to clarify, suggestions for parents or in terms of engaging with parents and teachers?
Both, if you can share both, nothing can beat it. But what do you think on ground worked for you amidst all this when you were facing these challenges?
Sure. So I think definitely, right? I think like everybody has seen, technology has been a boon. But I do believe, so we have looked at WhatsApp-based solutions. We have looked at ways to reach parents through audio, video, voice notes, and languages. And the only thing I want to remind someone of is we did an intervention with almost 2,000 children in the last year to ensure home-based learning. We did not find a difference in learning outcomes of children during home learning and pre-pandemic. So for the early years, I feel like running behind literacy and numeracy outcomes may not be the immediate concern. Like learning loss may have to be reimagined a little bit when you say learning loss for kids who are like 3, 4, and 5. So when I look at solutions, one is, yes, we need accelerator programs. We need bridge programs, especially maybe for the mass communities, because we want our children to catch up when they enter grade 1. But the one solution that I think we're going to also need is to meet our children, our parents, our teachers where they are. So technology to deliver solutions is one. We need it, and I think a lot of people are already doing it very well, and we can scale it. But what we need is also technology for assessment. I think when schools open, right, let's say now or 6 months down the line, we need to know where our children are and meet them there. Before we give them a bridge course of 100 days for English and maths and 5 other things, which we will. But, where are they socially, emotionally? What do you mean when we say we want to give our children social, emotional time to transition and kind of develop? So those are few things I would say. There is a room for assessing what our children need, meeting them halfway, and definitely using technology as an enabler to do so. And
you're very right in highlighting that, Shweta. And we really need to have some innovative methods, which I hope in our next section, Professor Sugata Mitra will walk us through about bringing technology in assessments. But from a parent perspective, Shreya, some quick tips that you have adopted to stimulate the brain of the child at home also, not only through technology, but what is it that the home atmosphere can offer in this?
Sure. Thank you, Meghna. So, Meghna, I think in the early years, the most critical role that we as educators or parents, what we really need to do is nurture the child's, there are 3 things. One is nurture the child's natural desire to learn. Second is that we need to build their patience and perseverance. And the third is that we want to enhance their inherent creativity. Even the school is trying to achieve those objectives. So I'll just touch upon what all we can do as parents to achieve those 3 objectives. Because once we do that, I think once they transition to physical school or are doing virtual learning, they'll be able to grasp concepts that they're able to concentrate and have a desire to learn. So I think that's what a role of a parent should be given this pandemic. So what I've seen really worked for my daughter and for others around we've been working with is that decluttering play space and avoiding having 40, 50 or whatever toys the child has stuffed in one corner. It's very important that you have limited toys at a certain time to preserve the child's natural desire to concentrate and to sense of order which is there. And we shouldn't overwhelm him with them. And this increases the concentration level, which again will help them in school. Secondly is we should, as a parent, as a working mother, what has really helped me is creating learning opportunities in day-to-day life, be it grocery, cooking, cleaning, laundry, anything. And they seem mundane to us, but the child learns so much in these activities. And they learn how to link those. Math can be taught through kitchen, like simple as that. So involving them and saving your time, because you have to juggle so many things at the same time as a parent. Thirdly, we should give them all preschools and all early learning education really focuses on sensory and free play. as parents, sometimes we don't do that setup because we think it's going to get dirty, let's not do sensory play. But it's so important for their child's imagination. And ultimately, what do we want out of the children? To generate the next sort of leaders who can think out of the box. And free play and sensory play is so important. So as parents, we really need to do that. And I think
Thanks,
that
Shreya, for highlighting this whole point that the role that parents should play, and we have been discussing through parent showcase as well. So, Dr. Swati, tell us what is it that the teachers need to bring in while we are wrapping up the session? We heard that yes, there are some solutions. What is it that teachers can learn from you real quick that they can implement right away in the classrooms so that this partnership between parent and teachers flourish?
Four things I would say. Number one, when we talk about virtual learning, let's not only focus on screens. Podcasts can be used brilliantly. Jumbo Kids has a podcast which we are doing, and we've got children using it from all around the world. Because, when we talk about home based learning, we only think of screen learning. It's very, very important at this age when we talk about listening skills, when we talk about focus, when we talk about cognitive flexibility. Podcast is something that parents must look at. Number two, assessments, very important that parents too play a part in assessments, because right now the child is at home. So the teacher will not be able to do much of assessments in that 1 hour of virtual learning. And I would urge parents to look at the EYFS developmental milestones given. It's available on the UK government's website. The document is called Birth Matters, and it gives you in 7 areas what the child should be, what stage the child should be at the particular age that your child is. So whether it's social skills, emotional skills, personal skills. So I think parents should download this document and have a look at that. Number three, I think in early years, we start too late. We say we start becoming aware of early years at 3 years, but you've already lost 0 to 3. And for this, there is a website called Born Smart, which has games for parents. These are 2-minute games which a parent can view and play at home with children without any toys or equipment, only with things available at home. We've also tied up with Tata Sky, and Born Smart is now available on channel 336. So it's available in the afternoon at 3 o'clock in Hindi and English. So if Shweta, if you want to use it with your parents, it's an amazing resource, and it helps parents understand how to engage their children for brain development. And
In
last,
fact,
very
very right.
importantly,
Yes, please go ahead, Dr. Watts.
And last, very importantly, we all need to understand and get ourselves ready that COVID is here to stay. Many of us have not yet woken up to this realization, and we are thinking that there is going to be one day in the next 6 months where suddenly we'll wake up and say, oh, COVID chala gaya. It's not going to happen. It's here to stay, which means we will all have to put our heads together to help children understand and deal with this world where they will attend schools and there will be time when they will not be able to attend schools. So it's going to become an on off part of their life. And that is something that neither the educators nor the government nor the parents have thought about, but epidemiologists are talking about it.
So here we are, we really need to focus on bringing the right kind of exposure for children, not only through technology, but also through our own efforts, through our own commitments to that. And Dr. Datta, if you have some wrapping words over here for this conversation, where we can tell teachers and parents what is their role to play in this partnership, and beyond technology, beyond that, how to bring that human emotions back. It is good to have websites, it is good to have resources, but where are we when it comes to that human touch?
For me, I feel this kind of new roles that have come for the teacher and for the parents, they have been thrust on them, and therefore I think at this point of time we definitely need to kind of build the skills, knowledge, or even aptitudes for that matter in both the groups, so that the relationship that we are trying to do, that the partnership that we have is meaningful, it's fruitful, is enjoyable, it's complementary. At this point of time, it is not so, I feel, and it is kind of just fitting the pegs, like ये करना है, वो करना है, parent करेगी, teacher करेगी, ऐसे हो जाता है. But I think if this is a long term thing, I think if we can think of a better strategies as to how we can build the skills and this relationship, I think we will do a better job.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for highlighting these beautiful aspects, everyone. So much to take from here, but I would for sure request everyone who is listening. There are some great resources outside. Please be well read, parents. Please choose wisely. Please do not jump to everything that is available outside, and play your crucial role through your human and wonderful touch that you bring. Teachers, I request the same to you. If you want this partnership to flourish, take care of yourself, understand the crucial role that you have in this world, and hopefully we will have new more dimensions adding to this partnership. Thank you so much, each and every panelist, for joining us with your keywords from here. We would love to take these learnings, and thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and sharing your knowledge nuggets with the crowd here. Thanks a
Thank you so
ton,
much.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
To bring the very best to children, friends, it is something which is a very ambitious vision. It is not something an easy vision or a smaller vision. Like all other previous speakers have highlighted, everyone has to play the role. And the most important thing to bring this vision to reality is to think from two ways. One, the lessons from past, and another one, what is there in the future? Where are we heading towards? Are we going back to normal, or going forward to normal? And this beautiful concept I learned from the professor himself, Professor Sugata Mitra, a man known for his wonderful experience, experiment on hole in the wall, and comes with rich experience. He is a known figure. Those who are on education platforms needs no introduction for Professor Sugata Mitra. Thank you so very much, Professor, for joining us straight from UK. Amidst your travel commitments, you could manage time to join us. Nothing can beat this feeling to have you here and hear directly from you. Given your rich experience and your prize winning TED talk, I would love to hear more from you and what you can share with the teachers and parents over here so that they look forward to future.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me in the first place. I was also listening to the last panel discussion, and it was very rich. I think many of the key important ideas actually did come through. But as you mentioned, what's the relationship of the past to what we have to do next?
True.
And what's the relationship of the future to what we should do next? I think as the closing talk, I think of this session of yours, it's a bit of a responsibility for me. I'll try to bring up some of the key points, some of the key things we need to keep in mind in order to go forward.
Sure, Professor, and we would love to see it from your rich experience, given your experience in Montessori approach also in UK, you highlighted during our previous conversations. We would love to know more in terms of what is there in the future. Right now, it looks so hazy. Right now, there is no clarity in approach, but probably this closing session of the summit will give us the clarity what needs to be done in immediate future and also for the leapfrog of education progress.
Okay, so without further delay, let's plunge into the topic.
All for it, all ears, Professor, and all for it. We would love to know the richness that you come with. And also, please do share with our teachers and parents about how to bring this journey to reality. See, we have been talking about some significant aspects, like you have said. But when we go back to our functions, when we go back to our roles of parents and teachers, how do we cherish it? How do we carry forward it into the real world? Is something I'm sure people would love to hear from you.
Yes, and I must also point out that there isn't a formula, that here is exactly what you should do. I mean, who am I to tell you that? But what I can do is to point out to you what are the main mind shift changes that we need to make if we haven't made them already.
Mm-hmm.
And those changes will help the children to be prepared for this future that they are, currently confronting and currently in the middle of. So,
So, Professor, while you are sharing your presentation to the crowd, I would request all the people and members in audience, please park your questions right now on the platforms on which you are watching. Professor has gracefully agreed to take the questions live from the audience, and I really would request you to not miss this opportunity. So please post your questions. We will save enough time at the end of his presentation so that we can discuss in depth and your pertinent questions can be answered by the expert himself. So look forward to hear from the audience as well. Stay tuned with us after on the other side of the presentation. But yes, all for you, Sugata, Mitra, Professor. We really want to hear you.
well, let's see. Where do I begin? Well, first of all, I think what is uppermost on everybody's mind is where are we headed? Okay, and I have to point out that what we hear very commonly are the words "when we go back to normal," and I think you just heard in the panel, you heard Dr. Vats say that that doesn't actually mean anything, isn't it? First of all, you can't go back in time. Okay, physics stops you from doing that. You can't move backward in time. You can only go forward. There is no other direction in time that we can go in. So let's put that aside. We have to go forward. And then comes normal. So, normal, what is normal? Even if we could have gone back in time, where would you like to go? 2019? Or is it 2000? Or is it 1920? Where was normal? So if you see what I mean, there is no normal. Who decides what is normal? Well, you and I, all of us together, we decide what is normal. What is normal now is that we have a viral infection, a new one. There have been many in the past. Here is a new one. This one keeps children out of school because it travels through the air. It keeps people from gathering together because it travels through the air. It doesn't travel through water. It doesn't travel with mosquitoes. It travels through air. That's the new world we have to live in, where we have to be careful about the air we breathe. So, yes.
If you, in your conversation, if you have any presentation, we are not yet able to see it. I'm not sure if you are sharing.
Yes, I will. I was just
don't
about
want audience to miss anything. And
no,
sorry to interrupt you.
You won't miss anything. It's just that I wanted to first, show my face so that you know that I'm really here, and then switch to my presentation. Okay.
That's so true. The virtual world can give you doubts on that as well.
I know.
But it is so good. For some, it is actually a dream to hear Professor Mitra live. So I'm sure your question is very pertinent. So people who are a big fan of your work must be wondering, am I hearing Professor Mitra live? So here he is, sharing his presentation to each one of us and talking so significant about looking forward to normal instead of looking back to normal.
Well, so I will now put on my presentation, and I'm happy to hear that you like the idea that I'm talking to you. The only problem with going forward in time is that you also get older. so
Good one, doctor. Very good one, Professor.
All right. So here goes.
Well, I always say those who work with children, they never get old. Children may ensure that we stay young. So we all are the privileged ones. I would use this platform to congratulate parents and teachers because we are the chosen ones. We are the blessed ones that we get the opportunity to work with children and stay young forever. So thank you so much, Professor, for reminding us about our age.
Not about you, not about yours, but about mine. Well, let me see. Let me get my presentation
Sure.
up on the
While
screen.
you are setting the presentation, I would again request, we already have questions pouring in for you without even listening to your presentation. I'm sure people have been following your great work. Hole in the Wall is a wonderful experiment. If you have not heard Professor's 2013 TED Talk, I would request audience to watch this prize-winning talk because it gives you a very fresh perspective of your role as a significant adult in the lives of children. So please do watch it if you have not watched it yet.
Well, thanks. Um, I have a quick question to you, which is, can you now see my full screen presentation, the full screen PowerPoint slide?
Not yet, Professor. We have not yet seen. I can
Oh,
see you
okay.
very well, but your
Oh, okay.
presentation is not yet visible to us.
Just a second. Let me see what I have to do.
If you can share your screen, and
Yeah,
if
yeah. I thought I did. Okay, hang on.
sure, take your time. No hurry on that. We can meanwhile talk to audience about it. So audience, I would like to use this opportunity to tell you that we in the morning hours we had wonderful workshops also under this summit. There were multiple experts joining us talking about parental burnout. So Vasundhara from Carpe Diem was joined us, and then we had Dr. Deb Mitra talking us about throughout the process of parents and that working in tandem with parents and teachers. And we also had some learning lessons from country like Finland to become the best preschool education system. And for sure, Professor, now we can see your presentation and we can very
Okay.
well.
Can you now see it in full screen?
Yes, Professor, wonderful vision, and we can see it very clearly. Virus
Terrific.
versus the internet, that itself
Right.
is so eye catching.
Well, there you are. So good thing. So I managed to actually get my full screen presentation up for you to see. I am told that you can also see me as in one corner of the
Sure,
screen. I hope that's
sure,
right.
yeah,
Okay.
for
All
sure.
right. Terrific. Okay, let's start. So first of all, the title. Look back at the last 18 months when the pandemic was here. Just imagine to yourself, what would it have been like if the internet was not there? You will realize that much of our societal systems would have simply collapsed. Okay? Whether it's shopping or whether it's online, deliveries or whether it's education in particular, it would have just collapsed. So when I thought about it, I said, but what did we do? What kept us going? And this line just popped into my mind. Between us, human beings, and the virus was the internet. The internet stood there defending. It's a wonderful thought because we created the internet, and here it is fighting and doing its best to keep the world going. Not just in the last 18 months when we struggled with all sorts of things, but now increasingly as we go forward into the future, the role of the internet in education is what all of us need to understand. As it happens, I have actually been involved with this for over 20 years now. And mostly because of experiments that I was doing back in the 1999, 2000, 2010, and so on and so forth. All of which at that time was considered a curiosity. The first of these was the hole in the wall, where I showed that slum children in New Delhi, given a computer, in those days when they had never seen a computer, never heard of the internet, could start browsing. Then in England, if you bring the internet into a classroom, the children seem to be able to learn anything if you give them a good question. Where will they get a good question from? Well, if you don't have someone locally available, get someone from the internet. We called it the granny cloud. Retired school teachers from all over the world who could come in and simply ask the children, can you figure this out? And then finally putting all of this together into a single facility called the school in the cloud. That's the bottom right-hand picture on your screen. It's from one of the schools here in Newcastle. I'm speaking to you from the city called Gateshead, which is up north. If you imagine the map of England, London's at the bottom. Towards the top is Scotland, and somewhere quite close to Scotland is Newcastle, and across the river is a smaller town called Gateshead. So that's where I am right now. And this picture is from one of the schools in that area. So all this was well received. Everybody in the world loved the idea, the children are picking up things from the internet. You just ask them anything and they just figure it out by themselves. But did they do anything about it? Very little. They did, and you'll be horrified, what they did was the opposite. They said, therefore, we must keep the internet out of school. What are we teachers going to do then, if the children are constantly Googling all the time? So it became forbidden to bring your phone to school. It became forbidden to look up things. It is ridiculous. Anyway, but no one listened. What I could not do for 20 years, a virus did in less than 20 months. It collapsed the old system. You just couldn't do things the way you used to. You couldn't get the children into a classroom. So what did the teachers do then? Oh, okay, so we have to use the internet. All right. We will make a classroom with the internet. We will use, video conferencing, Zoom, and, MS Teams and Google Meet and this, that, the other thing. And the children will be there on a screen. I will be there, the teacher, on a screen, and I will lecture them. It didn't work. Within a few months, the teachers said, oh my God, this is so much work. This is, it makes me feel so tense. I can't see the children. I can't make out if they're paying any attention. As far as the children are concerned, it was fun. It was school getting converted into a video game. I still remember the story of a child in Calcutta, where I was marooned during most of the pandemic, who in his online sessions had designed a screen which said, reconnecting, ... Just a black screen which said reconnecting, ... And as soon as his virtual classroom started, he would put that screen up and sit back or do whatever he wanted to. And the teacher would say, oh, look at that boy, Rohit, poor fellow, he's lost his connection, he's reconnecting. Well, let's hope he gets there. Okay. So the children were having fun. The teachers were getting most tense. The parents had no clue what was going on, except that they could do one thing which they could never have done in the past. They could see the teacher operating in that virtual classroom, and they could constantly interrupt and meddle with the process. That didn't get us very far either. You know what we were trying to do? We were trying to take one medium and make it behave like another one. We were trying to take a motor car and make it behave like a horse and cart. And it didn't work. Gradually, people started to ask me. Towards the end of 2020, I was speaking all the time on Zoom, all over the world, trying to answer this question. So what is that method? Well, what do we do? You've worked with children and the internet. You've worked with children alone with computers. So how does it work? How does it work? It's there everywhere now. One American gentleman wrote to me saying, I had read about the hole in the wall experiment, but now I have to make one in my house. How should I do it? Just tell me, give me advice. And I said, I don't have any advice. I only have my past research work, and that's all available for you to take a look at. Nobody did. So what I did instead was I started to put together some of the key differences that we need to keep in mind. And I'm going to take you through that. Firstly, what did we discover in my work in those 20 years? The most basic concept was that of a self-organized learning environment. It's really very simple. It's shortened to SOUL, as you can see. Basically, you take a group of children, give them one internet connection, big screen, like a desktop. Ask them a question, a really interesting one, anything. For example, you could ask them, why is it that milk is white? Have you ever seen, green milk, or blue milk, or yellow milk? Why is milk white? And if they're, let's say, 7-year-olds, they would say, why? Now, here is what changes. You say, I don't know. You could be a teacher, you could be a parent. Learn to say that, okay? Practice it. Look at yourself in the mirror and say, I don't know. Children love to hear that. Say, you don't know? Say, no, I don't know. But I'm very curious. Why is milk white? So I'll tell you what. I'll give you 15 minutes. Why don't you look up the internet? When I tried this in the UK, the children were aghast. Internet, it's not allowed. I said, no, for this session, it is allowed. I've spoken to the principal. It's allowed. Oh, but there's only one computer, Where are all the other computers? I don't know. You have to work with one. Remember the hole in the wall? One computer in a Delhi slum with 300 children. You need the group. So the researching is done in groups. So children clustering around and Googling. One child saying to them, that website's rubbish. Let's look up that YouTube video. Maybe that explains it better, etc. At the end of their 15 or 20 minutes, you ask them to report in groups. So what did you figure out? Could you figure it out? Yes, ma'am. Yes. So what? It's calcium. Calcium what? You see, anything with calcium, most things with calcium, like marble, like, concrete, like it's always white. Calcium forms things, compounds, which are white. Milk has a lot of that. So what happened? You got learning and you didn't do a thing. Not quite. You raised the question. That gives us the clue to the future of learning. So this is the little picture from those days. You see the children so relaxed, and no one's telling them to sit quietly. In fact, you're telling them to talk to each other, for heaven's sake, discuss this stuff, and then tell me. In a classroom, set up about as many computers so that you would get groups of 4. Okay, 4 children. So if there are 20 children, put 5 computers, and the screens should be big, as you can see. Don't have to tell them to make groups. A lot of teachers say, now children, you must make groups. But if there are 20 children and 4 computers or 5 computers, what else can they do? So please don't tell them anything. Just give them the question. Why do you send your child to school? Why do we have education in the first place? Well, here's my take on it. The purpose of education is to enable people to live happy, healthy, and useful lives. That's about it. The purpose of education is happiness, health, and usefulness in society, in your life. Keep that in mind. So whenever your child is doing anything at all, just think to yourself, is this going to help with happy, healthy, useful life? And you'll be surprised at the number of things where you normally say to the child, stop that. You'll find you're slowing down when you realize that you really shouldn't be doing that. The internet. People are so scared of the internet. Oh, my child's on the internet all the time. What's going to happen to him? What's going to happen? His eyes are going to get spoiled. And internet is full of terrible things and so on and so forth. Well, let me tell you this. The internet is safe on large, publicly visible screens. This is a picture from a school in Noida. The children researching, not even on a desktop, but on a projected big screen on the wall that everybody around them can see. If you do that with the internet and children, you never have to worry about safety. Because you can see what's going on, right? Think of the internet as you think of of your big TV in the living room. You're not scared of that TV. You're not scared your child's going to look at something terrible on the TV because it's in the living room. He knows you're walking back and forth between the kitchen or whatever. Put the internet there. Get a big screen. Put it right there. They'll be safe. Learning itself has changed. Learning in my time was just in case. A lot of times, if you think back, if you were to ask your teacher, why are you teaching me this? The answer in my Jesuit school in Delhi was, when you grow up, you will understand. That's not good enough anymore. It was just in case. Why are you teaching me calculus? Why are you making me memorize Byron's poetry? Just in case. But that's changed dramatically to just in time. Why was it just in case? Because you couldn't carry your library with you all the time. You couldn't carry all your books with you all the time. You couldn't carry your teachers with you all the time. But today, you can have all of them in your pocket. All of them. Every library on earth, every teacher on earth, every idea on earth, and all other children on the planet. Everybody. In which case, you don't need just in case. You need just in time. You need the ability to figure out the answer to a problem quickly and accurately when the problem is in front of you. Not just in case. Remember that. That's very, very important going forward to normal. Education was all about making it happen, We will take a group of children, we will discipline them, we will tell them what to do, we will teach them until they become educated. This is a statement from colonizing nations when they entered into countries where they thought everybody was uncivilized. With discipline, we will civilize them. Do you want that? Do you think that reality exists? Do you want to go back to normal? I don't think so. So where should we go? Let it happen. Learning is something that happens with children if you let them. This picture is from a school in rural Punjab. Curriculum. What is a curriculum? Curriculum is about things that people figured out ages ago, a pendulum. How long does it take for a pendulum to swing from side to side? Well, Galileo figured it out in the 17th century. And here, I'm going to tell you how he figured it out, or what he figured out. It's all about things that we already know. So why are we telling you that? Because you don't know. And you don't have access to the materials. That has changed. Today, a child could say, why are you telling me this? And you say, well, how would you know otherwise? And he would say, I'll Google it if I ever need to know. So what do we do under those circumstances? We change the curriculum to the big things that we do not know. Because the things that nobody knows, the internet doesn't know either. Children love those questions. Is there life on Mars? I don't know. Does anybody know? I don't think anybody knows. Say that to some 7-year-olds and see what they do. We'll figure it out, they'll say. Okay? And then give them the internet and say, see, tell me what's your best guess? Is there life on Mars? So make a curriculum of the big things that we don't know. Because why do we know all the things that we do? It's because there was a time when we didn't know and we asked. We looked up at the stars and said, what are those things? And from that came astronomy. We looked up at things on the ground. Why do things fall down to the ground? And from that came physics and gravity, and so on. Curriculum always arises from the things that we don't know. Of the things that we don't know, there are some things that we need to know. Okay, I mean, for example, let me see. You need to know that wearing a mask will protect you from a viral infection. Whether you like to know it or not, but you need to know that. If you explain that to children, they will help. They will learn it. But then there are also things that are good to know. You know, why is ice cream so tasty? Not what it is made up of. That's pretty boring stuff, milk and sugar and this and that. Why is it tasty? What is taste? Why do some things taste good and some things taste bad? Well, that may not help you to live a long and healthy life, but the point is, it's good to know. So break up those big questions to which no one knows the answer into two groups: need to know and good to know. So what's your role as a parent or as a teacher? Well, remember, you're dealing with questions to which you don't know the answer. So you can't teach. You cannot lecture. But you can raise the question, and you can tell the children, whether they're your children or whether they're school children or whatever, you can tell them, you go there, I'll go with you. Let's find out together. That's the new normal. You know, children are like plants. They're products of nature. They're like your school's like a garden, really. And you are not an architect. You're not using an engineering design to build up your children. You're just watering the plants and giving them what they need so that they can grow. What's the difference between a gardener and an architect? An architect knows where every room will be, where every bathroom will be, where every bridge will be. If you take a gardener and say, can you make me a banana tree? And can you get me 20 bananas? The gardener will say, well, I can try to get you the banana tree, and I cannot predict if there will be 20 bananas. Gardens need freedom, not structure and scaffolding. Children are like that. I must tell you this from Hayek. He said this 100 years ago. I mean, I cannot but marvel at it. Spontaneous order. As parents, we frequently don't even believe that it exists, that learning will just happen out of nowhere. Let me read this out for you. Spontaneous order is a system which has developed not through the central direction or patronage of one or a few individuals, but through the unintended consequences of the decisions of myriad individuals, each pursuing their own interests through voluntary exchange, cooperation, and trial and error. Error. Remember that. That's called spontaneous order, and that's what should be happening in your school. This one's pretty simple, Do not teach learners what they can learn by themselves. I mean, what can be more obvious than that? Why would you teach a learner something that they can learn by themselves? So don't. The only trick is you have to know what is it that they can learn by themselves. Well, I'll tell you what I found. Groups of unsupervised learners using the internet can learn anything by themselves. Anything? Well, I haven't found anything that they couldn't learn by themselves. That's why I've written that. And it's published work. I've been saying that since, I don't know, 2007 or something like that, when I found that children peering into those screens are actually learning whatever they want to learn. As long as they want to learn it, they will learn it. Remember that one. Unsupervised learners using the internet in groups, always in groups, can learn anything by themselves. If they're not in groups, if they're alone, they can get misled by the internet. They can head off into a wrong direction. Groups self-correct. Here is the new world that we are in. You need to know when you need to know, not before. You don't need to spend the first 17 years of life knowing things that you may one day need to know. When you need to know, you need to know. What should we assess, particularly in preschool? Particularly with your children, what should you be worried about? Not math, not chemistry, not physics. That's for 12th standard. In the 12th standard, your child is going to be put through a mindless exercise in memorization, a leftover from the colonial civilization of 100 years ago. Until that changes, they will have to go through that. It will be one of the worst years of their life. The results in those examinations will determine about everything in his or her life. But until then, we can help to mitigate that terrible problem that they will face in their final years of schooling. We need to measure only 3 things to prepare them for the future: computing, comprehension, and communication. By computing, I mean the ability to use a computer properly, to know what's a web page, to know how to turn on and off YouTube, when to look for what. Comprehension, to understand what you're looking at, to be able to figure out, is it wrong or is it right? If 2 websites are saying wrong things, remember, in groups, they self-correct. And communication, to be able to understand and to explain to someone else. If your child can do those 3 things well, that's all you need to assess. A good assessment for testing for those 3 things would be to allow the use of the internet during examinations. I've been saying that for almost 10 years now, since 2010 or 11. No one listened. Everybody said it's an absurd statement. They're going to cheat all the time. So what's the value of an examination where you allow the internet? So looking up Google is cheating, which means, ladies and gentlemen, teachers and parents, you're all cheating all the time, right? So why don't you let the children do the same? Think about it. Finally, what's the best assessment? If you want to know if your little girl is good at science or not, a good science teacher can tell you. A teacher knows your child even better than the parent, because she sees the child, day in and day out. Okay, you might say, but a teacher could be biased. In which case, use a panel of teachers, 2, 3, 4 teachers. They can't all be biased, okay? Let them have a conversation. Not problem solving, not saying, how long does it take for 1 kilogram to fall through 1 meter of space? Not that kind of thing. A conversation like, so when something falls, how long does it take to hit the ground? Can you figure that out? And by listening to the answer, you assess. The panel assesses. Is that very strange? It's not. At the top of at the pinnacle of our education system is the degree called PhD. Do you know how PhDs are evaluated? Through what's called a viva voce. a verbal examination. There is no exam for PhD, the highest degree that we have in our system. So what have our children done wrong? Conversation with the teacher can provide accurate assessment of learning. So that's about what I had to say. And there are 3 books, if you're interested in reading and that sort of thing, which gives the background, the theory. One is the whole history of the hole in the wall. The other is what happened after the hole in the wall in England. And thirdly, what happened when I won this big prize called the TED Prize and built what I called a school in the cloud. They were a novelty in 2013 when I built them. They are no longer a novelty anymore because every school has become a school in the cloud. And finally, what I said in this talk is actually described along with activities and examples and everything in another little book, tiny book. It's called The Virus versus the Internet. So that's about it. I hope all of this made some sense to you. And if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them in the short little time that we have.
No time is enough for you, and listening you is an honor, Professor. So what a wonderful journey. I'm still in awe of what you just shared with each one of us. And we have questions for coming in, but I would really request you to start with this very question. There are parents and teachers who are really now wondering, going to the physical schools from the use of technology, how this transition has to be smooth for children, and what is the role that we need to play when children are coming back from technology to in-person peer learning also, because peer learning plays a very crucial role in a child's journey.
Well, firstly, as I said, the transition has actually happened. Whether we wanted it to happen or not, it has happened. It took the teachers by surprise. It took the parents by surprise and everybody. It even took the children by surprise, There are still children who say, I don't want to sit at home all the time and I want to go to school. I asked some children in England a couple of years ago, so why are you, why do you want to go back to school? And as you might imagine, the answer was, because I want to meet my friends. So nobody said, I want to go back to school because I want to listen to a lecture. They said, I want to go back to school to meet my friends. So the world has changed to where we meet our friends like this, like you and I are meeting right now. Mm-hmm. We've got so used to it. Think about it. Aren't you now very much used to seeing the person you're talking to on a screen instead of sitting across the table? We've gotten used to it. Human beings get used to anything. So we have to get used to this new reality that school will be partly physical and partly virtual. Eventually, I don't know where it will head towards. Maybe it will go completely virtual. It could very well, and it has some distinct advantages. For example, a teacher doesn't have to belong to a school. If you have a virtual school, the teacher could be from anywhere on the planet. Okay? A child doesn't have to belong to a school. You don't have to say, my child didn't get admission in this wonderful school. Well, he's got the whole world to choose from. You can get admission anywhere. We must build that world where these things are possible, where you can say, okay, I didn't get a good place in Delhi. I'm going to send my child to Singapore, to a school in Singapore. How? Well, it'll take one extra click. That's about it. So that's the world,
I wish it comes true real soon, where the world is not going through the boundaries and the education becomes accessible to each and every child. The next question in line, Professor, I think there are many big fans of yours sitting in the crowd, and we really need to take their questions. The next one is, do you think a hybrid system might really be successful in the future of education? Collaboration is essential. What about teaching aspect in this? I think partly you already answered.
Yeah, I did partly. I think it's not a question of whether it is possible. It's a question of when it happens. It has already happened. I mean, look at this conference. This conference is hybrid. There are a few people maybe who are sitting with you, and there are physically, and there are lots of people who are virtually. Do we care? Well, we have a habit of saying it's not like the real thing. Now, I don't know what that means. What does it mean? Not like the real thing. So if you and I, if Meghna and I were actually sitting face to face right now, what would be different in our conversation? Would anything be different? I don't know. What else would happen which cannot happen over virtual space? Well, if you wanted a nasty answer, I would say I can't smell her. That's ridiculous, isn't it? So the thing is, yes, it will become hybrid. It has already become hybrid. We just have to prevent an ancient administration made up of people of my generation from stopping it.
So well said. So well said, Professor. I'm sure a person of your caliber can highlight it, and it is going to the right ears. I'm so happy that you highlighted there. The next question in line, Professor: how to make children natural learners? In fact, I would also ask you this question: preparing them to be equipped in making decisions for a career, anything that they wish to pursue. How do you ensure that the natural instinct to learn continues?
Well, first of all, don't worry about what they will become. Why shouldn't we worry about it? Because this is not 1920. We don't know what they will become. We have no idea. So, you say, well, I want to see, maybe he can become a doctor. How do you know there'll be doctors 30 years from now by the time he grows up? I mean, this world is totally unpredictable. That little girl which you see in front of you, 8-year-old, well, by the time she's 40, she might be living on Mars. How is school going to prepare her for that? So what should we do? Let them learn. Remember, I said letting learning happen instead of making it happen. I'll give you a very quick example. When I was stuck in Calcutta, a very lower middle class family who was living close by in a garage had a child who obviously was on virtual schooling. Okay. And I must say, her parents quickly adapted to this, gave him her phone, the mother gave him her phone, said, use this, listen to the class, listen to the lectures. But then most of the day, what would the child do? Well, I found him wandering about. He's about 8 years old, wandering about, peering very closely at plants growing. In the tropical, humid Calcutta weather, there's lots of plants, weeds, all sorts of things growing. So I went and asked him. He said, it's wonderful, how the shoots come out, how they look for the light, how they head for the wall and they start climbing the wall. And I said, my God, this child. I mean, first of all, I thought, I must put him into school. I must take him to university. Then I realized I'm making a mistake. I must let him be. I must give him the freedom. Mm-hmm. And one day, he'll be that biologist who'll save the world.
So the freedom to learn is what you want to say. Not intervene or not interrupt the natural flow, right?
Remember this, gardens need freedom, not scaffolding.
True. Not scaffolding. Very true. We have secondary question to the previous question, Professor. The parent or the teacher is asking, sitting in the crowd, about the essential angle between social and collaboration angle is essential. So I think they really want to understand, how do you work around it?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a pity that the children can't play together. I hope that will change. As we learn more about the virus, we'll figure out ways by which the children can come physically together and play. That's very, very important. And also be with nature, as we saw from my last example. These things are very important for children. They will happen. We will find ways to it. I mean, people like yourself will figure out ways of how to get the children together without risk, and then ensure that they get the company. But you must remember one more thing. We must all remember one more thing. Our concept of being together is from our childhood.
Yes.
You are not preparing your child for your past. You are preparing your child for their future. And in their future, when that child is sitting on Mars, this method, what we are using, this will be collaboration.
So nice. You are not preparing your children for past of yours, but the future for themselves. Nothing can beat this. My best takeaway of the summit, I would call it, Professor. Next question. I'm sure we are running out of time, but if you permit, can I take one more question,
Yeah,
please?
one more, please.
Yeah. Kids in early years, mode of self-learning online is mainly YouTube and other apps, basically technology with videos. So this esteemed person wants to know, would that impact a child's ability later to focus on the school scenario where things aren't moving as fast or as quickly the way we see the changes in the screen? And basically, I think here is a parent or a teacher worrying about the impact of the screen on children.
Well, I think that's a fantastic question to end on, actually. It is very serious what this gentleman is saying. I'd like to thank him for bringing this up. It's all very well for me to say use the internet, allow the child freedom, etc. What about CBSE and ICSE and 12th standard? What happens then? I still don't have an answer, but we have the beginnings of an answer, and I have to tell you this. Last year in England, their exam is called GCSE. They could not conduct it, obviously because of the pandemic. But does that mean that the students would lose a year? Thank God their government decided no. We will give them the GCSE results. And everybody said, how? But they haven't taken the exam. And they said, and I was jumping, they said, we will do it without the exam. We will ask their teachers to look at 9th, 10th, 11th standard scores, look at their homework, talk to other teachers, talk to the child, and put together a score, and we will trust the teacher's judgment. The result came out about a month ago. The number of A+, the highest score, the number of A pluses had gone up by 25%. Okay, but does it mean that the poor students were also getting A+? No. There were students who were graded B, there were students who were graded C. Everybody agreed that it was a fair assessment, except that it was completely stress-free. The children were smiling. I got an A+. The parents said, my goodness, I didn't have to chase after my child in GCSE, prepare for GCSE. Let me send you to a coaching class. None of that happened. It's possible. The virus showed us. I'm ashamed to say that it is not professors like me who could show it. A virus was needed to show that there is an alternative assessment. If we change the assessment system, everything I'm saying will happen by itself. But until we change the assessment system, you have to warn your child. By the time you get to 11th standard, stop everything. Stop the internet. Memorize your school books. Memorize it day and night. Spew it out during the exam. And then forget it. That's how it is. If you, Meghna, if I were to take you and put you through the ICSE examination today, I think you would get a horrible score. So would I.
So true. No,
So what was the point of torturing us in those years?
Oh, yeah. In fact, most of the parents ask this question, Professor. I can really become a voice of many parents, especially young parents who have young children, that whatever I learned is totally obsolete and redundant. We cannot use it anymore. I don't know whether my child will ever need that for me as a parent to remember.
I know, and it's going to only increase this sort of thing. I use an example with school teachers which illustrates this, and we can sort of stop with that. Imagine that you could go back 20 years, just 20 years. You could go back to the year 2000. Imagine that you meet a school teacher in year 2000 and you have to explain to her what Wikipedia is.
Hmm.
You'll say, what? There is a network which spans the whole world. It's an encyclopedia that's written by the readers. And by this time, that teacher from 2000 would be saying, are you nuts or what? But it happened. It
Well,
happened.
we have to stop our conversation, unfortunately, with a very heavy heart, Professor. I know you have other commitments and you cannot take more questions, but thank you so much to all those who posted wonderful questions and made this interaction so fruitful. I would say so much to learn from you. I cannot wrap up in few words what all you have showed us the path for. But I recently read somebody shared this with me that the best thing to do this is probably 10 years ago, but the next best thing, the second best thing is to do it now. So it is better that we get up now at least and work in the direction for future which is going to be much more productive, probably with altogether new dimensions that we have never thought of in the past. But it is better to be innovative rather than harnessing on the past. Thank you so very much, Professor. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
I must tell you, to reach you and to have you on this platform took me months. Today, at this moment, I feel it's all worth it. It is all worth it to have you here. It was so surreal. We could hear you for long and long. Unfortunately, clock is not allowing us to do that. Thank you so very much for your gracious presence on this platform and taking all the questions that audience have posted. I am really sorry on behalf of Klay Preschools that not all questions can be entertained at this juncture, but for sure we will have Professor on various other platforms and hopefully we will connect soon, Professor. Even though it's virtually, I gained the same pleasure that I
Thank you.
could have got for really.
Thank you, and all the best for all of you.
Thank you so much, Professor. We'll keep your learnings intact in our hearts, in our minds. And for sure, I promise you that there will be many who will have their own takeaways. But yes, you have made a difference in the thinking process of many adults who are listening to you today evening. Thank you so very much, Professor. Such a big thank you coming from the audience as well. All the applause, all the appreciation, I'm sure reaching to you. The vibes are reaching to you. Thank you so very much
Thank
for
you.
for really showing us the path. I'm really feeling like I'm holding a finger of somebody who is such a big expert and can look forward to the future with much more clarity. Thanks a ton,
Thank you.
Professor.
Thank you.
Friends, we have come to an end of this summit, and what a wonderful, wonderful closure. From the beginning, as I was telling, in the morning we had workshops, and now we had summit. The evening part started with gracious words coming from Kiran, Bedi, and then we have many people joining us through their real experience. Steve Zwolak to the parents showcase, and then the panelists sharing their real life experiences and what worked and what did not. And finally, Professor Sugata Mitra bringing so much of knowledge in just few minutes, so much to absorb, millions of lessons learned, thousands of thoughts coming in our minds right now. But one single reason: we all want to give the very best to our children, to very best to this future generation, and we all need to play our part. Friends, as I said in the beginning, International Summit on Early Years is a very humble and very small attempt in bringing these thoughts to you to start looking for education with a new perspective. And I hope we are successful in playing this part, that now you have many, many thoughts coming your way and you need to channelize it in the direction which will be more fruitful for our children. I'm sure we will do our best. We are now better equipped. We have all those tools in our hands now, and we just need to go out and act on it. One important thing about ISEY before we say goodbye to each other, all the teachers sitting in the audience, this world is incomplete without you. You are the ones who are creating all other professions. So my humble tribute coming your way. This is a wonderful tribute that Klay has prepared for each and every teacher out there. Happy Teachers Day coming very soon. We launched ISEY on Teachers Day, and we will continue to bring such stalwarts of education your way to show you the path where we are heading towards. And please, friends, do stay in touch. We will keep sharing the updates with each one of you, what is there that we are going to offer very soon, not only for thought-provoking sessions, but also to check the reality on ground. But for sure, we need to take this opportunity to pay the tribute to teachers. Before that, a big congratulations to the people who worked BTS. I learned this word very recently while working with the young crowd. Friends, an event of this stature is not just an outcome of two hands and one brain. The whole team is behind it, and all those people who have worked behind the scenes, BTS, hats off, kudos to sail through this kind of event amidst all odds. We all survived. Congratulations, and a big applaud coming to all those people who have given their sweat and given their thoughts to this wonderful event. Nothing can beat the feeling of winning the championship, and championships are only won by teamwork. So with this particular note, and kudos to the team behind working for this day and night, I pay the tribute on behalf of Klay's Preschools and Daycare and Institute of Early Childhood Education and Development. Here comes a wonderful tribute for each and every teacher out there, and parents, take a bow. We really respect your partnership. You sitting in this summit talks volumes about your partnership. Your talks volumes about your enthusiasm, and nothing can beat it. Let's stay connected, and may God bless us with this partnership. May we see new dimensions adding to this partnership. Happy Teachers Day, teachers. Thank you so very much for joining us throughout the summit, and we promise to bring you a better and bigger version of this summit next year, hopefully in person.